Chapter 73. Xiao Xiao looked down at her. Jiang Wan was still young, and even though she was already considered tall among her peers, she only reached Xiao Xiao's chest. Xiao Xiao listened to her words, but was not angry. His long and slightly curved eyelashes drooped down as he said, "Xia Chen will not let you off. There are many people in this world who will not let me off." Jiang Wan looked straight into his eyes. "I may not really die." She smiled slightly. "Your Highness can't even take care of yourself, how can you still have the leisure to care about others?" Xiao Xiao was slightly startled. In the court, everyone respected him, feared him, and flattered him, but there were also countless people who wanted to harm him. It was very similar to the situation of the Di daughter of the Jiang Fu, but he had never been afraid, even if there was danger everywhere, because, he said lightly, "Ben Wang has the ability to protect myself, do you?" "Your Highness should not worry about Wan Yang." Jiang Wan cautiously kept a distance from him. Once bitten, twice shy. He had once saved Jiang Su Su, who knew what he was planning. But as long as it was related to Jiang Su Su, she would not hesitate to classify it as an enemy, and Jining Wang was the same. "Whether Wan Yang has the ability to protect herself or not, isn't it clear to your Highness?" After thinking for a while, she added, "Although it is good to be a fence-sitter, it is still shameful. Since you have chosen a side, don't change it at will. Be careful not to please both sides." After saying this, she walked outside and no longer paid attention to Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao stood where he was. Jiang Ruan's words were to remind him not to be a fence-sitter, and he naturally understood that. Yi Feng said, "This eldest Jiang Miss is really rude. Master is kind enough to help her, but she still ridicules him." "Yi Feng," Xiao Xiao interrupted him, "return to the Fu." In the room, Yuya was silently wiping her tears. Xia Cheng's face was gloomy, and after glancing at the deathly pale Xia Jun, he finally could not hold back his anger and pointed at Jiang Su Su. "Evil girl, kneel." Jiang Su Su panicked and hurriedly moved closer to Xia Yan. Xia Yan protected her in her arms and whispered, "Father, what are you doing? Don't think that I don't know why Jun went to the ancestral hall for no reason last night. It was all because of this evil girl. Now, nothing has happened to Jiang Wan, but your cousin has fallen into someone else's trap." Xia Jun frowned, but Yuya shrieked. The way she looked at Jiang Su Su suddenly changed. "Is this true?" Jiang Su Su evaded her aunt's sharp gaze and said, "This matter was agreed to by Biao Ge himself. Moreover, I only asked him to comfort de Jijie. If it wasn't for Biao Ge having such thoughts, how could things have developed to this stage?" Xia Jun's eyes darkened when he heard that. He snorted coldly and said, "Comfort? Do you really think no one knows that you put an aphrodisiac in the incense burner?" This was something he figured out after the fact. At that time, the ancestral hall was filled with smoke, and he only thought that it was the incense burning in the ancestral hall. However, when he lost his rationality, he immediately thought of something suspicious. Yuya finally could not bear it any longer and rushed forward. She pulled Xia Yan away and slapped Jiang Su Su's face. Her blow was extremely heavy, and Jiang Su Su staggered from the impact. The veil covering her face fell off, revealing half of her ugly face. She screamed and covered her face, shouting, "What are you doing? What am I doing?" At this moment, Yuya had completely shed her usual noble and dignified image of a noblewoman. Her face was ferocious, as if she wanted to swallow Jiang Su Su whole. "You schemed against Jun, like this, and even used an aphrodisiac. Do you have any shame? Second sister-in-law." Xia Yan shielded Jiang Su Su behind her. "You've gone too far. Jun, is also responsible for this matter. How can you blame Su Su?" Shenro was somewhat at a loss. She had not expected that Jiang Su Su, an unmarried daughter, would actually use such a despicable method. Xia Yan, a gentle sister-in-law, would also act like an angry tigress, baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. "Shut up." Xia Cheng could not bear it any longer. He pointed at Jiang Su's nose and scolded, "Idiot, you don't have the ability, yet you want to learn from others to harm others. Aren't you afraid that your little tricks will make you laugh your head off? You can't compare to Jiang Ruan's scheming, yet you were still schemed against by her. Idiot." Although Xia Yan was dissatisfied with how Xia Cheng spoke of Jiang Su, she had always been afraid of Xia Cheng and did not dare to speak. However, Xia Cheng's words, "I can't compare to Jiang Ruan," had provoked her. Immediately, she disregarded everything and said, "Maternal grandfather is right. I can't compare to Jiang Ruan, and I don't have any schemes. But what about maternal grandfather's own methods? Snacks? Wasn't it still seen through by others? You made a fool of yourself in front of His Highness the Crown Prince and Eighth Highness. Is maternal grandfather not stupid?" Xia Yan was shocked and hurriedly covered Jiang Su's mouth. Jiang Su fiercely glared at Xia Cheng, her eyes full of resentment. Xia Cheng was extremely furious. He flew up and kicked Jiang Su to the side. Panting, he said, "Evil girl, get out. Tomorrow morning, take your Jiang family members and get out of my Xiafu. I will treat it as if I never had you as a daughter and never had you as a grandson." Maternal grandfather. Seeing this, Jiang Chao, who had been gloomy all along, hurriedly said, "Younger sister was just impatient for a moment. She didn't mean to contradict you. I apologize on her behalf." Ever since Xia Cheng had inherited the title of nobility, he had received a lot of flattery. When had he ever been contradicted? Moreover, Jiang Su's words had hit his sore spot. For a moment, he flew into a rage out of humiliation. He found the Jiang family extremely unpleasant to the eye. Without even looking at Jiang Chao, he sneered, "I'm afraid that she simply doesn't care about me, her maternal grandfather." Finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and left. Jiang Su fell to the ground from Xia Cheng's kick. She covered her face and didn't say anything. However, her gaze was as gloomy as a poisonous snake's. Yuya walked in front of her and coldly said, "This matter will not be settled so easily. You harmed my June. Within 3 years, he will not be able to step into the official career. If you don't give me an explanation for this, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. When that time comes, don't say that I didn't give you, my niece, any face." Finished speaking, she supported Xia Jun and left without looking at Jiang Su and her daughter. At this point, it would not be good for Shinro to stay any longer. She smiled and said, "I will go and see how Jiao is doing." She also left. The 2 young masters of the Xia family were not there. Otherwise, who knew how the situation would develop? There was no one in the room. Jiang Su suddenly covered her face and wailed, "Mother, mother, how could they do this to me?" Although Xia Yan was also angry that Jiang Su had acted on her own and fallen into Jiang Ruan's trap, she was, after all, a piece of flesh that had fallen from her body. She also felt sorry for her current sorry state. She pulled her into her embrace. "It's mother's fault. Originally, mother wanted to get your maternal grandfather to help plot against Jiang Ruan. I didn't expect that Jiang Ruan would be so cunning. Su, it's mother's fault. Mother should not have kept that slut. 5 years ago, I should have sent her and that short-lived mother to meet the king of hell together. It's just that my Su has suffered. Demei is not simple." Jiang Chao gloomily said, "Right now, maternal grandfather is dissatisfied with Mimi, and second Biaoshen's family is hostile towards us. What should we do now?" "Don't worry, Chao, don't worry." Xia Yan wiped away Jiang Su's tears. "Mother still has a way. I can definitely make that slut unable to make a comeback." On the other side of the room, Jiang Ruan was drinking tea with Lian Xiao. She had brought 2 servant girls with her, but now there was only one left, which made one sigh. Seeing Lian Xiao's rare silence, Jiang Ruan said, "Do you think that I am very cruel?" Lian Xiao stared blankly and asked in confusion, "Why does Miss say that?" Shu Xiang was harmed by me. I clearly had the opportunity to save her, but I did not say a word. Do you think that I am too cruel? Jiang Wan asked. Lian Xiao paused, and after a moment, she understood what Jiang Ruan meant. She lowered her head and knelt in front of Jiang Ruan. This servant has never had such thoughts. Although Shu Xiang died a miserable death, she only had herself to blame. If Miss had not done that last night, then the person who would have died in the hall today could have been Mississippi. This servant's master is Miss, and this servant's entire life is to serve Mississippi. If anything were to happen to Miss, this servant would not be happy for the rest of my life. Her tone was light, and her words were nimble. She said each word in a straightforward manner. Miss is not cruel, and I ask Miss not to think that you are cruel. What the Jiang Fu and Xia Fu are thinking now, this servant can also see a thing or two. It is already extremely difficult for Miss to continue living, so why should there be a need to differentiate between the means? It is only self-preservation that matters. They were heartless first, so how can they blame Miss for being unjust? Get up. Jiang Wan sighed softly. The waters here are too murky, and I do not want to drag you all into it. It's just that you have also seen what happened today. From now on, such things will happen to me from time to time. It will also be beneficial for you all to be more vigilant. Lian Xiao's nose turned sour, and she stood up in a soft voice. Ever since Jiang Wan returned to the Jiang Fu, many things had been handed over to Lu Zhu to do. It was not that she did not have any thoughts. Lu Zhu was a second-rank servant girl, but it seemed that Jiang Wan trusted her more than a first-rank servant girl. However, after this incident at the Xia Fu, with real danger in front of her, that strange feeling of hers immediately vanished into thin air. She raised her head to look at Jiang Wan. They had lived with Jiang Wan since she was a young lady of a noble family who was ignorant of worldly affairs. They had accompanied her all the way through the pain of losing her mother, being bullied and humiliated in the rural residence, being despised by her biological father, and parting with her elder brother. Scenes of the past flashed before their eyes. Unknowingly when, that weak and meek girl had disappeared, and in her place was the cruel, beautiful, and decisive Jiang Ruan. Such a change really made one feel gratified and sad at the same time. Miss, coming to the Xia Fu this time, there must be another purpose. Lian Xiao said, at present, I am afraid that Miss has already become a thorn in the side of the Xia family. Jiang Wan smiled slightly. What other purpose could there be? The 8th prince is here, and Xia Yan rushed over anxiously. It is nothing more than to ask the 8th prince to be a middleman and make peace with the Li family. Then now? Lian Xiao asked. Second sister has already angered the Xia family. For the time being, the Xia family will not stand up for the Jiang family. A married daughter is like spilled water. Will Marquis Xia give up his own grandson for a grandson? The Xia family's second young mistress could not swallow this. Second sister treated her son as a fool, how could she be willing? Don't worry, the Xia family's second young mistress is not an ordinary person. This time, there will be a good show to watch. Lian Xiao thought for a moment. According to 5th Yin Yang, Master will marry Miss into the Li family. Miss should make plans early. What is there to be afraid of? Jiang Wan said lightly, if the Xia family does not say anything, the 8th prince will not take the initiative to discuss this matter with the Li family. Even if father personally wants to make peace with the Li family, Li Dong will not be so easily dismissed. Moreover, after this period of time, I am afraid that Li Yang will not have the life to marry a wife. Lian Xiao was startled. Looking at Jiang Ruan's indifferent expression, her heart skipped a beat, and she lowered her head in deep thought. Jiang Wan smiled. The Xia family personally invited me to visit, but it was because mother had prepared a gift for me. I still have a big gift for them. Lian Xiao raised her head to look at her. Miss? Regarding Li Dong's matter, I will have to trouble the Xia family's eldest young mistress to make a trip, she said. As she finished speaking, she took out a letter from her bosom and handed it to Lien Qiao, looking for an opportunity to stuff it into the hands of the Xia family's eldest young mistress. Although Lien Qiao did not know why, she still accepted it. Jiang Yuan smiled slightly. The Xia family's fu was in a foul atmosphere. Shenrou and Xia Kai already had a beginning and an end. The beautiful and moving Xia family's eldest young mistress, the infinitely romantic Xia family's second young master, sister-in-law and brother-in-law. She wondered if Shenrou would be so frightened that her face would turn pale when she saw this letter. However, it was better to use this chess move later. Jiang Ruan's gaze was somewhat regretful. It is still raining today. Yes, Lien Qiao followed her words and said, it still hasn't stopped. The spring rain should not have lasted for so long. The day of the refugees entering the capital was getting closer and closer. Early the next morning, Xia Cheng had indeed ordered people to prepare a horse carriage, with the attitude of chasing people away. It was said that Xia Furen had awoken last night and had begged Xia Cheng for a long time, but he had not changed his mind. Perhaps he was so angry that he even vented his anger on Xia Furen. As a result, it was completely different from when they had arrived. When they left, not a single person from the Xia family came to send them off. Jiang Li was naturally overjoyed, but Jiang Su and the other two people's faces were ashen. Jiang Dan was still quietly huddled in a corner. The only one who was completely unaffected by the atmosphere was Jiang Ruan. By the time they returned to the Jiang Fu, Jiang Quan had already learned the whole story from the messenger that Xia Yan had sent over. Naturally, he was angry at Jiang Su for not being able to accomplish anything, but more than that, he was angry at the Xia family's ruthlessness. When Xia Cheng had not yet inherited the title of nobility, he had been extremely fawning over him as his son-in-law. Now that he had the title of nobility, he also put on airs in front of him. He also heard that Li Dong had recently been searching for famous doctors in the capital at a high price. Presumably, the life of the Li family's son had been saved, but this made things even more difficult. Thinking about all these things, Jiang Quan only felt a headache. Seeing him like this, the manservant beside him comforted him, "Master, you haven't slept a wink all night. Do you want to rest?" Jiang Quan waved his hand. At this moment, he was already badly battered, so how could he still be in the mood to rest? Seeing this, the manservant muttered, "Speaking of which, it's strange. Ever since eldest miss returned to the Fu, there has been no peace in the Fu." As he spoke, he stole a glance at Jiang Quan's expression. When Jiang Quan heard those words, his body stiffened. His entire person seemed to be stunned for a moment, and his brows gradually wrinkled. After a moment, he suddenly fiercely slammed the table, "Evil star." The manservant jumped in fright and retreated to one side, mumbling to himself. However, Jiang Quan suddenly recalled that after Zhao Mei's death, there had been a wandering Taoist priest who had passed by who had performed a divination for Jiang Ruan. He had said that she was an inauspicious person, born to bring misfortune to her husband and mother. However, Jiang Quan was not a superstitious person, and did not pay much attention to matters of ghosts and monsters. It was just that at that time, Zhao Mei had just died, and Xia Cheng had inherited the title of nobility. He had repeatedly urged him to promote Xia Yan as the official wife. At that time, he also had the intention to do so. Thinking that Jiang Su and Jiang Chao had been wronged for so many years for no good reason, he had followed the Taoist priest's advice and placed Jiang Ruan in the rural residence. Firstly, it was to let Xia Yan feel at ease. Secondly, as long as he did not see Jiang Ruan, he would not think of that hateful Zhao Mei. Now, after hearing the manservant's reminder, Jiang Quan suddenly reacted. Ever since Jiang Ruan had returned to the Fu, the Jiang Fu had indeed been in constant turmoil. First, Jiang Su had mysteriously lost her reputation, then Jiang Chao had failed in the imperial examination and had his finger chopped off. Now, there was enmity between the Li Dong family and the Xia family. All these things seemed to have a subtle relationship with Jiang Ruan. However, relying on her own strength, it was naturally impossible for her to achieve such a stage. She did not have that kind of scheming, nor did she have that kind of means. However, there was something fishy about the matter. The only reasonable explanation was that, as the Taoist priest had said, she was truly a lone star with natural ill luck. Jiang Quan clenched his fists tightly. He had originally thought that having one more daughter would give Xia Yan and the other two a bargaining chip. Who would have known that this was an evil spirit that had come to claim his life? Since that was the case, he could only eliminate her. The manservant had followed Jiang Quan for many years. Seeing Jiang Quan's expression, he quietly withdrew from the room and left without saying anything. When Jiang Wan returned to Wanju, the first thing she did was to dismiss the few servant girls that Xia Yan had previously sent over. She said, "Mother has promised that I will send you back. You can return to Yan Huayuan on your own." The few servant girls looked at each other in dismay. One of them plucked up her courage and said, "Eldest Miss, Furen has sent us to serve you. We wish to stay by your side." However, Jiang Wan did not seem to have heard anything. She instructed Lian Xiao, who was beside her, "Oh yes, when you have time, make a trip to the Xia Fu and help me bury Shu Xiang's body. After all, she has followed me for a while. She cannot end up being buried in a mass grave to be fed to the wolves." The few servant girls stared blankly at her words and looked at Jiang Wan. Sure enough, Shu Xiang's figure was no longer by her side. Lian Xiao said, "This servant understands. Shu Xiang died so tragically. Miss, please do not take it to heart. She only has herself to blame." Jiang Wan smiled slightly and looked at the few servant girls. "What did you say just now?" "Nothing," the servant girl hurriedly replied. She lowered her head and did not dare to look at Jiang Wan again. Jiang Wan left, satisfied. In Yan Huayuan, the travel-worn Xia Yan had just returned to her room when she heard Li Momo come over and say, "Furen, master's servant, Wan Kai, has something to report. Let him in." Xia Yan took the tea that Lin Lang had handed over and sat down on the carved wooden chair in the room. When Wan Kai entered, he said to Xia Yan, "Furen." Xia Yan waved her hand. "If you have something to say, speak frankly. How is the matter that I entrusted you with?" Wan Kai nodded. "It has been settled. Master believes that eldest miss is a lone star, but he does not know what to do now." Xia Yan's lips curled into a cold smile. "Since this is the case, tell master that in a few days, a very intelligent wandering Taoist priest will be coming to the capital. Recently, there has been a lot of trouble in the Jiangfu. I would like to invite this expert to come here and perform a ritual to get rid of the bad luck in the Fu." Wan Kai rolled his eyes and said, "I understand. You may leave." Xia Yan waved her hand tiredly. After Wan Kai left, Li Momo stepped forward and gently massaged Xia Yan's shoulders. "Furen, are we going to use the previous method again? We have to find an excuse." Xia Yan narrowed her eyes. "There has been a lot of trouble in the Jiangfu these days. If we can push all the blame onto Jiang Wan, everyone's eyes will not always be on Su, and Chao, On the contrary, Jiang Ruan's reputation will go down in history. This is the best way to clear Su, and Chao's reputations." Li Momo laughed. "Furen is brilliant. No matter how brilliant eldest miss is, it will be difficult for her to fight against public opinion. Moreover, master is already suspicious of her, so we just have to do it boldly. In order to prove that these words are not false, in a few days it will be mother's birthday. Arrange for it to be on that day, so that the Taoist priest can also pray for blessings with mother. In front of so many people, he can prove that Jiang Wan is an evil star. In this lifetime, Jiang Wan can forget about making a comeback." "Furen, are we still looking for the Taoist priest from 5 years ago?" Li Momo asked. Xia Yan's hand paused in the middle of her forehead, and she laughed fiercely. Naturally, the words of an old friend are the most convincing. 5 years ago, I was able to send her to the rural residence, and 5 years later, I will naturally be able to do the same. It's just that 5 years ago, Master told me to hide this matter. Now, I want the whole world to know that Jiang Wan is a lone star who brings bad luck to her parents. 5 years ago, in order to find an excellent excuse to send Jiang Wan to the rural residence, she bribed a Taoist priest to make Jiang Wan an ominous star. Originally, she wanted Jiang Wan to die in the rural residence, but she did not expect that she would actually survive and return to the capital ahead of time. As early as when she returned to the Xiafu, she had left a trick up her sleeve. If things did not work out, she would destroy Jiang Wan. In short, Jiang Wan had made Jiang Su suffer, so Jiang Wan could forget about escaping unscathed. Wan Kai had already worked for her a few years ago, so blowing wind and blowing grass in front of Jiang Quan was a simple matter. Moreover, Jiang Quan had always disliked Jiang Wan. If there was even the slightest sign of trouble, the first person he would suspect would be Jiang Wan. No matter how Jiang Wan schemed, because she was not favored by Jiang Quan, she was destined to never have a chance to win in this battle. The old Jiang madam had just regained consciousness a few days ago, and her body was slightly better after recuperating. However, she was, after all, in her later years, and was not as healthy as when she was young. Illness came like a landslide, and in just a few short days, she had become a lot more haggard, and her face also showed signs of aging. Duwan walked in with a bowl of medicine and gave Kai Kei, who was guarding the old Jiang madam, a look. Kai Kei hurriedly stood up and smiled at the old Jiang madam, who was looking out the window in a daze. "Old madam, drink the medicine while it's hot." The old Jiang madam withdrew her gaze and looked at the bowl in Duwan's hands. She coldly said, "Why do I still need to eat medicine? I think this person can't wait for me to die." Kai Kei jumped in fright and hurriedly said, "Old madam, what are you saying? Everyone hopes that you will live a long, long life. For the sake of second young master, you must also be healthy." The old Jiang madam's gaze suddenly deepened. "He takes after his mother's temperament. I originally thought that he was a good person, but now he is arrogant and conceited. He is the same as his younger sister, both short-sighted." Kai Kei was startled. The old madam had evaluated Jiang Chao and Jiang Su in front of the two of them, and they did not know how to respond. The old Jiang madam glanced at Kai Kei and reached out to take the bowl of medicine from Du Wan's tray. She raised her head and drank it cleanly. The medicine was really too bitter. She closed her eyes and furrowed her brows tightly. After a long while, her expression gradually relaxed. "Old madam, it will be your birthday in a few days. Madam said that she would personally make arrangements for you." Duwan saw that the old Jiang madam's expression had somewhat eased and cautiously opened her mouth. "It's just a cover-up." The old Jiang madam sneered, "Does she think that I don't know what she's planning?" Kai Kei and Duwan looked at each other. The old Jiang madam had always been serious and composed, but after this illness, it was as if she had changed into a different person. She was especially dissatisfied with Xia Yan and her two sons. They only heard the old Jiang madam say, "But this time, I'm afraid that her calculations will be in vain. Eldest miss is not an ordinary person." Kai Kei and Duwan lowered their heads and did not make a sound, but they naturally had other thoughts in their hearts. For the next few days, there was a pitter-patter of light rain in the capital, and the dark clouds never seemed to leave the sky above the capital. Even the food stored in the manors of the rich and powerful had begun to grow moldy and damp. Naturally, there was no need to say more about the poor. However, the newly built Zhuangyuan's manor in the capital was washed by the rain until it shone brightly. Even the gloomy weather could not disperse the joy on the signboard of the Lu manor. In the study, Lu Min stood in front of the window, lost in thought as he watched the rainwater dripping from the eaves. It had been a long time since it had rained for such a long time in the capital. It did not appear to be very heavy, but the pitter-patter was incessant. The water level of the moat had risen considerably, and even in the newly built Zhuangyuan's manor, one could still feel a trace of gloomy dampness in the room. The maidservant behind him thoughtfully offered him a cup of ginger tea. "Young master, drink some to warm your body." Lu Min turned around and took the teacup from the maidservant's hands, lightly taking a sip. He was not very old, but he had a deep and aloof pride. Compared to the impetuous disciples of the noble families in the capital, he was like a cool and refreshing bluestone. Just looking at him made one feel respect from the bottom of one's heart. He asked, "In the past few days, have there been any letters from me?" The maidservant was startled and shook her head. "No." A trace of disappointment flashed across Lu Min's face. Ever since he had been appointed Zhuangyuan, he had not seen that mysterious person again. At this time, Lu Furen walked in with quick steps. In her hand was a gilded invitation. "Ah Min, why are you dressed so thinly?" Lu Min smiled and shook his head. Seeing the invitation in her hand, he asked, "Mother, what is this?" "The wife of Minister Jiang from the capital sent an invitation. She invites us to her family's old madam's birthday banquet." Lu Furen was a bit hesitant. "I originally wanted to refuse, but now that you are also a person of the bureaucracy, it would be good to have someone to take care of you. This invitation is written very clearly. It says that we have just arrived in the capital and have come to pay a special visit. Mother thinks that it is only a birthday banquet. There is nothing to worry about if we go." She thought of something and suddenly smiled. "Moreover, there will be many noble young ladies attending this birthday banquet. If there is one you like, Mother will keep an eye out for you. You are not young anymore and should worry about your marriage." "Mother," Lu Min was a bit helpless. "I only want to start a career and have no thoughts of starting a family." "Nonsense." Lu Furen glared at her. "Mother still wants to hold grandchildren." Finishing, she looked at Lu Min and asked, "But Min, do you think Mother should go to this birthday banquet?" Seeing her mother's expectant gaze, Lu Min could not bring herself to refuse. She smiled and said, "If Mother wants to go, then naturally you should go." Chapter 74. A crowd had gathered at the entrance of the house of a minister in the east of the city. The minister and his wife, dressed in brocade clothes, were stuffing a bundle in their hands into the hands of a kind-looking old monk. "Master is willing to exorcise evil from our house, we are very grateful. Although it is a worldly possession, Master can use it to help Bodhisattva build a golden body." The monk's hair and beard were all white, but he had a sage-like appearance. He put his palms together and said, "Amitba." A circle of onlookers surrounded them, all pointing at the monk and clicking their tongues in wonder. This was Master Huiju, who had recently become famous in the capital. It was said that he knew the past and the future. He had just settled in the capital a few days ago, and often helped rich families pray for blessings and exorcise evil. After Master Huiju took the bundle, he said goodbye to the crowd and walked alone. He turned around the bustling street and entered a dark and narrow alley. There was a small house with 2 entrances in the alley. He walked to the door and knocked. A boy came to open the door and welcomed him in. After Huiju entered the courtyard, the boy said, "Master, there is a guest." "Guest?" He was shocked. He did not know anyone in the capital. Although he did not understand, he still walked in with a calm face. In the hall stood a young girl in emerald green clothes. She looked to be about 11 or 12 years old and looked like a servant girl. The servant girl in emerald green clothes smiled when she saw him. Huiju was stunned. He only heard a gentle voice coming from behind the servant girl, "Master." Huiju followed the voice and saw the silhouette of a young girl in the dark. The servant girl in emerald green clothes walked to the side. As the light shone over, the figure in the dark was revealed. It was a young girl. Her age should be about the same as the servant girl in emerald green clothes. She was dressed in a red and white embroidered dress with a high collar and slanted front. Even though she was in the dark, it still could not conceal her beautiful appearance. She looked at Huiju with a smile, as if she was looking at an old friend she had known for many years. Her slightly raised charming eyes were clear and moist, but inexplicably made people feel that they could not be seen clearly. Mrs. Huiju muttered. The girl in front of him was really unfamiliar. He did not have any memory of her in his mind. Although Master does not know me, I have long heard of Master's great name. Today, I came to ask Master, what is my date of birth? She asked. Miss is still young, why did you come alone to ask for divination? Huiju asked. Life is full of ups and downs, and the road ahead is unknown. Jiang Wan only said these words. Huiju was taken aback. He thought for a while and said, if that's the case, please write down Mrs. date of birth. Jiang Wan picked up the brush and wrote. When she picked up the pen to write, Huiju was also quietly observing her. Seeing that this young lady's bearing was out of the ordinary, she must be the young lady of a noble family. Her actions were hard to fathom and there was a bit of hostility between her brows. She immediately changed her mind and looked at the expression of the maid beside her. In a short moment, she had already made up her mind. Jiang Wan pushed the slip of paper with her 8 characters of birth written on it towards Huiju. Great Master, please take a look. Huiju spread out the paper and reached out to remove the prayer beads around his neck. He lowered his head and did not speak. After half an incense stick of time, his brows gradually furrowed. Seeing this, Lu Zhu looked at Jiang Ruan's expression and asked with a smile, Great Master, what do you mean? Huiju gazed at Jiang Ruan, wanting to speak but hesitating for a while. Then, he shook his head and sighed heavily. Grandmaster, please speak your mind. In contrast to his distressed expression, Jiang Ruan was extremely relaxed. Her face was calm, as if she was divining someone else's fortune. Huiju said, Mrs. Divination is inauspicious. I'm afraid that it's the name of a heavenly cursed lone star. Heavenly cursed lone star. Jiang Wan chewed on these words. Huiju lowered his brows and retracted his gaze, truly like a bodhisattva who bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. He heard Jiang Wan say, Great Master is brilliant, I indeed have the fate of a heavenly cursed lone star. My mother died because of me, and because of me, my brother's whereabouts are unknown. Now, strange things are happening in the Fu one after another. Her voice was gloomy, as if she was truly grieving to the extreme. Huiju said, Even so, Miss need not worry. This old monk has a way to rewrite Mrs.'s fate. Since Miss is so considerate, this old monk will make a trip to Mrs. Fu the next day to discuss it with the relatives in the Fu. Why is Great Master helping me? Jiang Wan asked. Huiju lowered his head and put his palms together. Umitba, a monk is compassionate. Great Master is truly kind. Some monks like Great Master are not like this. I've heard of a story about a monk in Yuzhou. On normal days, he used the banner of an eminent monk to swindle people and amass quite a lot of wealth. When he heard the 2 words, Yuzhou, Huiju's hands trembled slightly. He heard Jiang Ruan's gentle voice coming from the opposite side, this monk was an orphan. When he was young, he was adopted by a wandering monk. This wandering monk was the originator who taught him the art of swindling. The wandering monk used him as a tool to make money, frequently beating and scolding him. After he learned some of the wandering monk's tricks and gradually grew up, he personally strangled the wandering monk to death and lied to everyone that his master had passed away. He inherited the wandering monk's mantle and continued to be a master of swindling and swindling people. Speaking up to this point, she paused and said, Speaking of which, that monk in Yuzhou also had the same Buddhist name as Great Master. I don't know if you've heard of this story, Huiju. Huiju sat on the spot like a wooden sculpture. A thin layer of cold sweat appeared on his back. He had never told anyone about these secrets. Moreover, this was something that had happened decades ago. At that time, this little girl was probably not even born yet. How did she know all these things so clearly? He raised his head and saw that the young girl opposite him had a playful smile on her lips. Where was the slightest trace of sadness? Huiju heard his own dry voice. This old monk has never heard of it. There are many things in this world that great master may not have heard of all of them. However, I have some interesting things here that I can tell great master. For example, that little child just now, it made me think of the story. When that monk was swindling a family, he had an affair with the family's young miss. The young miss became pregnant, but until her death, she refused to reveal who the father of the child was until she died from a difficult labor. Her family members wanted to abandon the naturally weak infant. This monk, who pretended to be benevolent, proposed to take him as a disciple. The young Mrs. family members were naturally happy to see this happen, but they did not know that the infant was the monk's son. Hearing this, Huiju's face no longer had the slightest trace of calmness and detachment. He was already drenched in cold sweat, and his expression was tense. After the infant was handed over to the monk, because he was born with a lack of health, he needed to use expensive medicinal herbs to keep his life. The monk had no choice but to double his wealth. However, Yuzhou was only a small city, so he came to the most prosperous capital. There were many wealthy families in the capital. Once he had a reputation and earned a lot of money, he could treat his son's illness. Jiang Wan smiled slightly. Great master, what do you think of this story? Who are you? Huiju asked after a long silence. He really could not see through this young girl in front of him at all. He thought that she must have been instructed by an expert to meet him. Otherwise, for a stranger who he had never met to openly reveal these secrets that he had buried in the bottom of his heart and could never see the light of day, it was really daunting. For the first time in his life, Huiju, who had played with someone else in the palm of his hand, had a feeling that he was unable to control himself. Jiang Wan looked at him quietly. I am just a lone star. Huiju, you now have two choices. First, kill me and no one will ever know your secret. Second, listen to me and I will keep this secret for you. Her expression was calm, and there was not a trace of unease about the uncertainty of the future. It was as if she had already determined what Huiju's answer was. Huiju looked at her, and suddenly, a ruthless intent rose in his heart. He asked, how do you know about these things? Huiju, do you want to save your son? Jiang Wan did not answer his question. Son. Huiju's body stiffened, and the thought that had just arisen disappeared in an instant. He thought of his son who was lying on the sickbed. The doctor had said that his son was born with a lack of health. If he could not be nurtured with expensive medicine, his body would be very weak. He had been a fake monk for so many years, and he had not expected that he would have a son in his later years. He wanted to save his son. What method do you have? Huiju asked. If you do as I say, I guarantee that you will not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life. Your son will be nurtured by the best doctor, and you will not have to worry about not being able to afford the expensive medicinal herbs. You will not have to run around and live in fear all day long. Her charming eyes were astonishingly bright, and her tone contained a little bewitchment. You will enjoy the respect of tens of thousands of people, countless riches and honor, and a long period of stability. You will become the most efficacious monk, and you will become the state preceptor. Huiju was almost bewitched by the scene she described, but he had not lived a life of deception for so many years in vain. He was especially sensitive in this aspect. Very quickly, he regained his composure and said, Miss, you are making fun of this old monk. I don't know why Miss has sought this old monk out, but this old monk is only an ordinary monk. I am not worthy of the title of a high monk, and I fear that there are many things that I am powerless to do. Jiang Wan looked at him calmly and smiled. Know the past, understand the future. So many things just now are in the past. It seems that I still need to prove one thing to you. Huiju did not speak. Tonight, the prefectural magistrate's fu in the city will be haunted. Tomorrow morning, I will definitely invite you to perform the ritual. Jiang Wan said. Huiju only felt that this was inconceivable. Miss? It doesn't matter if you believe my words or not. If you want to save your son, then do as I say. Jiang Wan said, 10 days from now, there will be old madam's birthday banquet at Minister Zhang's Fu. I want you to perform the ritual and pray for old madam's good fortune on that day. Inadvertently, you discovered that there was a demon causing mischief in the Fu. As it turns out, the second miss of the Jiang Fu is the bane of her existence. She smiled faintly. Great master's technique is so brilliant that I don't need to teach you how to do it. How can you be so sure that I will come on that day? Huiju could not help but ask. Jiang Wan stood up. Didn't I tell you long ago that know the past, understand the future? With her back to the light, her expression was gentle, her countenance like a painting, and her bright red clothes made one's heart shiver. It was as if under that beautiful skin was the heart of a demon, and she really was like a witch from hell who led tourists to degenerate. Jiang Wan walked to the door with the servant girl. Suddenly, as if remembering something, she turned around and said, I forgot to say, my name is Jiang Wan, the eldest daughter of the Jiang family in the capital. After walking out of the dark alley, Lu Zhu looked at Jiang Ruan's expression and cautiously said, Miss, are you sure that the monk will really come in 10 days? Naturally, he will come. Huiju regarded his precious son as his life. Every time spring arrived, his son's illness would worsen due to the weather. In her previous life, Xianli had used Huiju's weakness to bribe him a few years later, thinking that Huiju would treat his son's illness. Huiju was indeed a talented person, and under Xianli's arrangements, he became the state preceptor and provided Xianli with a lot of convenience. In this life, she had followed the same pattern, and long before Xianli had made his move, she had taken Huiju in for her own use. Now that it was the spring festival, Huiju looked at his son's illness and thought of her words. It was hard not to be tempted. There were many people in the world who had a weakness, and once one grasped it, one could need it at will. Now that she thought about it, it was fortunate that in her previous life, Xianli had told her these secrets without reservation in order to make her a competent chess piece in the palace. Otherwise, without this information, it would have been very difficult to subdue a person like Huiju. Lu Zhu said, it is fortunate that Fifth Yin Yang mentioned this matter to Mississippi. The mother and daughter of Yan Huayuan were unexpectedly able to think of such a sinister method. They are really too vicious. On the night they returned to the Fu, Hong Ying hurriedly made a trip to Ruanju and said that Jiang Quan wanted to invite a Taoist priest to perform a ritual at old Furin's birthday banquet to rid the Fu of the bad luck that had accumulated over the past few days. Although she did not explicitly say it, she mentioned that the Taoist priest who would perform the ritual was the same wandering Taoist priest who had passed by the Jiang Fu 5 years ago to perform a divination for Jiang Ruan. In the end, Hong Ying said, Old Furin's birthday banquet is an important matter. In any case, it cannot be sloppy. Eldest miss, please prepare well. Jiang Wan thanked her with a smile and conveniently returned the favor. She unintentionally mentioned that recently, there had been a rift between the Xia Fu and the Jiang Fu. Jiang Quan was not completely without ill feelings towards Xia Yan, and needed Hong Ying's consolation. Hong Ying was an intelligent person. When Jiang Wan thought about this, she smiled slightly. Xia Yan had actually thought of using this trick again. 5 years ago, or rather in her previous life, because she was stupid, she had been like a clay figurine, allowing Xia Yan to manipulate her. Now, if Xia Yan wanted to repeat what had happened that year, it would not be so simple. Lu Zhu looked ahead and said, Miss Lin's Fu's carriage has arrived. Jiang Wan turned her head and saw that, sure enough, a carriage had stopped at the rouge shop in front of the alley. Lin Zixiang jumped down from the carriage, and when she saw Jiang Wan, she said with a straight face, Why are you so dawdling? You made me wait for a while. Jiang Wan smiled and said, On the way here, I was delayed for some time. Let's go in and take a look first. Old Jiang Madam's birthday banquet was imminent, and Jiang Wan was not in the mood to personally make a gift for her. She informed Xia Yan that Miss Lin of the Lin family, Lin Zixiang, would be going with her sisters. Naturally, Xia Yan could not refuse Lin Zixiang's invitation on Jiang Ruan's behalf. When she thought of how Jiang Su was unable to leave the house due to the scar on her face, her heart was filled with resentment, but she had no choice but to agree. Just as they stepped into the rouge shop, they heard a clear and melodious voice, "Hey, Zixiang, Wan Mimi, I have been waiting for you for a long time." Dong Ying'er warmly greeted them, but Zhao Jin, who was standing at the side, was somewhat helpless. "The smell of cosmetics is making me want to vomit. Let's go out." Dong Ying'er held onto Zhao Jin's hand. "Haven't we just arrived? I say, Jin, now that you are almost of marriageable age, why do you not know how to tidy yourself up? You are still acting like a tomboy. Be careful that your future husband will dislike you." Zhao Jin was born into a family of military officials, so naturally, she looked down on these delicate young ladies who applied makeup and powder. Moreover, Dong Ying'er was very clingy. Jiang Wan smiled and said, "I have strolled around a lot of cosmetics shops. I know that there is a newly opened jewelry shop in the city. Inside, there are many rare treasures. Besides gold and silver jewelry, there are also many precious swords and weapons. It is a dazzling lineup. Why doesn't Zhao Jijie go take a look?" When Zhao Jin heard this, she hurriedly said, "Indeed, Wan Mimi, you must not deceive me." Jiang Wan smiled and said, "How would I dare to deceive Jijie?" Dong Ying'er had always loved to see novelties. When she heard these words, she said, "Since that's the case, Wan Mimi, let's quickly go to that jewelry shop to take a look. Recently, I have been lacking a pair of exquisite bracelets." Lin Zixiang also felt that it was a good idea, so they boarded the carriage and headed towards the city. When the carriage stopped, Dong Ying'er was the first to jump off. Jiang Wan and the others followed. Sure enough, they saw a pagoda-shaped rock building with the 3 large words, "Yi Bao Gu" written on it. When they entered the building, a rather delicate and pretty servant girl led them in and explained, "The first floor is for jewelry and ornaments, while the second floor is for precious weapons. I don't know what Mrs. would like to see." "Ornaments. Weapons." Dong Ying'er and Zhao Jin cried out at the same time. Dong Ying'er glared at Zhao Jin, "Are you trying to oppose me? You know that I usually don't look at those things. Why don't we split up and come back after looking?" Zhao Jin suggested. Lin Zixiang said, "Let's do that. I will also stay here to look at ornaments. In any case, I don't understand weapons." "What about you, Wan Mimi?" "Wan Mimi must be staying with us to look at ornaments," Dong Ying'er interrupted. However, Jiang Wan smiled and shook her head, "I want to look at weapons." "Look at weapons?" Not only Dong Ying'er and Lin Zixiang, but Zhao Jin was also stunned. Looking at her in disbelief, she said, "You don't even practice martial arts, why would you look at weapons?" Jiang Wan smiled apologetically, "After my eldest brother joined the army, there was no news of him. I don't know when he will return. However, I think that if he returns, he will definitely be a resolute, unyielding, and iron-blooded man. If there is a good weapon to go with it, it will certainly be very appropriate." She then added, "However, I will only be looking." When the rest of the people heard her words, they were somewhat moved. Zhao Jin said, "I am also somewhat interested in weapons. If we go together, I might be able to give you some ideas." Jiang Wan naturally smiled and agreed. The two of them went to the second floor. Indeed, as the rumors said, they were all top-notch weapons. Some emitted a faint green light, while others had been around for many years. As soon as they entered, they felt that they were overflowing with color. Zhao Jin already cried out in surprise, "There are actually so many, and it looks like there are even spiritual treasures." Jiang Wan looked at her. Zhao Jin touched a treasured sword that was hanging on the wall. Just as she placed her hand on it, she felt a jolt. She hurriedly retreated a few steps and excitedly said, "It really is a treasure." Jiang Wan was not as excited as Zhao Jin. She looked around and felt that one of the fire cloud hard moon shields would be extremely suitable for Jiang Xing. If Jiang Xing had such an armor on the battlefield, he would be much safer. However, when she looked at the silver marked at the bottom, she suddenly felt a headache. Not to mention that all of her silver had been used to buy the old grain in the capital. Even if she had some left, it would still be far from enough. She continued to walk forward, and her gaze was attracted by something in the basket. She reached out and picked it up. It was an exquisite and small bracelet, which emitted a beautiful blue light. Jiang Wan put it on her hand, and the bracelet made her fair hand appear even more slender. Zhao Jin walked over and asked curiously, "Why is there also jewelry on this floor?" The servant girl from the jewelry building who was following them explained, "This is a blood moon bracelet, it is used to." Before she could finish speaking, she saw Jiang Wan skillfully press down on the protruding pattern in the middle of the bracelet and aim it at her. "Miss?" The servant girl was stunned for a moment, and her face was somewhat stiff. "I will not press it down." Jiang Wan removed the bracelet from her hand. "How many needles are there inside?" 9. The servant girl explained stiffly, "But all of them are highly toxic." When Zhao Jin saw Jiang Ruan's actions, she was somewhat dazed, but after hearing the servant girl's explanation, she understood, so there is such a mechanism. After saying this, she looked at Jiang Wan. "Wan Mimi, you normally do not come into contact with these things, and I do not even know the use of this thing." "How did you know?" Jiang Ruan's proficient appearance just now did not seem like it was the first time she had seen it. Jiang Wan smiled faintly. "Mother had previously searched for this kind of bracelet in the unique book." Zhao Jin nodded, "So that's how it is, but in the end, this thing can only be regarded as a concealed weapon. I still prefer that precious sword." Jiang Wan stretched out her fingers to stroke the smooth surface of the bracelet, and her gaze suddenly deepened. In her previous life, Jiang Quan had once found a similar bracelet for Jiang Su Su. At that time, Jiang Su Su wore it day and night. Jiang Wan was very envious, but in the end, she did not have the courage to tell Jiang Quan that she also wanted one. She could only pretend that the silver bracelet on her wrist also had such a function, and occasionally touch it, deceiving herself that it also had such a mechanism. Now that she thought about it, it seemed like an unreal dream. The appearance of the blood moon bracelet in her hand was even more beautiful than Jiang Su Su's, and it could hold more needles. The servant girl also explained that after the needles were shot out, they would be pulled back by the fine silk thread of the heavenly silkworm. Moreover, it was highly toxic, so it was extremely suitable for her to keep by her side. However, Jiang Wan shook her head and put the bracelet back. "Does Miss feel that it is not good?" That servant girl had originally seen Jiang Ruan's expression and knew that she liked this bracelet very much, but now, her actions made her flabbergasted. "I do not have that much money." Jiang Ruan smiled. She could only reluctantly part with it. "Me too." Zhao Jin reluctantly looked at the precious sword hanging on the wall. "I hope that I can persuade my father." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. After looking at the things in the building for a while, they went downstairs to look for Lin Zixiang. After they left, the servant girl who had been following them to explain walked to the celadon lion head on the wall at the back of the room and pressed it. A small door opened, revealing an elegant room at the side. Being so close, it was not difficult to hear the conversation in the hall clearly. "Master," the servant girl respectfully said, "Jiang family's young miss has taken a fancy to this blood moon bracelet." As she spoke, she presented the tray. The man sitting in the elegant room grunted and said without turning his head, "Put it away." "Yes." The servant girl quietly retreated. The man walked to the window. The pattering light rain made everything in the capital hazy, but it could not obstruct one's vision. After a while, Jiang Wan and the others got on the carriage downstairs. The carriage rolled on the wheels and slowly drove away. On this day, Jiang Wan and Dong Yinger went out to choose a birthday gift, but in the end, Jiang Wan did not buy anything. Dong Yinger asked curiously, "You are going back empty-handed?" "I do not have money." Jiang Wan smiled warmly. She did not think that the life of a noble family's young miss would be so difficult. Dong Yinger and the other two felt some sympathy for her and wanted to help her with some money. However, they were afraid that it would hurt Jiang Ruan's self-esteem, so they could only comfort her with a few words. However, looking at Jiang Ruan's appearance, they recalled that her mother had passed away when she was a child, and that her father had been neglected. Their pity for her deepened. Jiang Wan did not care about the gazes of the other three people, and calmly returned to the Fu with Lu Zhu. On the way back, Lu Zhu asked, "Miss, are you really not going to buy anything? Where can I find money?" Jiang Wan still said the same thing, "Now that I am penniless, buying some cheap goods will only make people laugh their heads off. Miss, you should not have bought so much old grain. At least keep half." Lu Zhu curled her lips and lifted the curtain of the carriage to look outside. She said, "Speaking of which, it is strange that the rain has not stopped. It has been continuously raining for more than 10 days. She thought about it and said, "This servant is thinking that if the rain does not stop, then the old grain that Miss bought can be sold and you can definitely make a lot of money. But if that happens, there will be many more refugees in the capital." Lu Zhu frowned, "This is really difficult." Jiang Wan laughed in her heart. She did not intend to sell the old grain, so Lu Zhu's wish to make money would probably fail. However, Jiang Wan did not intend to tell Lu Zhu about this for the time being. She said, "It is not that I do not have a gift for Lao Furen's birthday banquet. Hui Zhu is the best gift." Dewdrop rolled her eyes and giggled, "Miss is right. This gift is bigger than anything else. This servant can't wait for that day to come." When the two of them returned to the Fu, the servants in the Fu saw that Jiang Ruan's hands were empty. Some of them went to Yan Huayuan to report the matter. Jiang Su was talking to Xia Yan when she heard the matter and said, "She is just a pauper. Presumably, she has no money to buy things." Xia Yan tapped her forehead, "No matter what, you have to write the 100 longevity characters. This time, you have won your grandmother's favor, and your father will feel better." "I know." Jiang Su was a little impatient, "I just don't know what Jiang Ruan will give. If she doesn't prepare anything, then there will be a good show to watch." Xia Yan smiled, "No matter what gift she prepared, no matter how much effort she put into it, she will not be able to win Lao Furen's favor." "Why?" Jiang Su asked. "Who would like a lone star who is cursed by the heavens?" A trace of ruthlessness flashed in Xia Yan's eyes. Moreover, old Jiang Madam had always believed in ghosts and gods, and every year she spent a large amount of incense money. This kind of person was extremely taboo when it came to matters of ghosts and gods. Especially since the Jiang Fu had met with one mishap after another, even if Jiang Quan was not old Jiang Madam's biological son, after so many years as a mother and son, she still had some sincerity. As the old madam of the Jiang Fu, it was even more impossible for her to watch the Jiang Fu fall into danger and remain indifferent. This time, Jiang Wan would most likely not be able to escape this calamity. Jiang Su looked at Xia Yan's expression and could somewhat guess what was going on. She asked tentatively, "Mother already has a plan?" Xia Yan lovingly embraced her and stroked her head, "You only need to know that everything Mother does is for you and Chao. Don't let Mother down." Jiang Su nestled in Xia Yan's embrace, her beautiful eyes wide open, and the hatred in them made one shudder. She said, "I know, Mother. On the day of Grandmother's birthday banquet, I really can't wait for it to come." Chapter 75. Jiang Chao laughed. Could it be that Demimi forgot to prepare a gift for Zumo? Wasn't it the same last time at maternal grandfather's house? Nyang even helped you prepare it. I'm laughing that thanks to Su Kong Dao Zhang, Wan Yang now knows that she has the fate of a lone star. These words were somewhat unclear, and everyone looked at her in confusion. Jiang Wan said, since Su Kong Dao Zhang can calculate Wan Yang's fate, he left 5 years ago. 5 years later, his skills have improved greatly. He should have a way to break this fate. As she thought this, the other Furins in the hall were already discussing this eldest miss of the Jiang family. Jiang Wan bowed to them one by one. She smiled warmly, and no one knew what she said, but she chatted happily with the other Furins. Very quickly, she won the favor of many people. Even the harshest assistant minister's wife could not be cold when she saw her. Lian Xiao, who was following behind Jiang Wan, felt a chill in her heart. What a vicious mind. After a few years of being an ant in the temple, the people of the capital would have long forgotten that Jiang Wan existed. And once she passed the age limit, Jiang Wan would grow older, and it would be even more difficult to find a marriage. Wrong, Xia Yan had confirmed Jiang Ruan's fate of a lone star in front of so many people. Which good family in the capital would dare to want her? They would probably hide from her. How did you know that I am the wife of the army chief? Gu Furan was astonished. Gu Furan laughed, so that's how it is. Jiang Furan, your daughter is really pure and intelligent. She saw that Jiang Ruan's attitude was generous, her bearing was extraordinary, and she was also exceptionally intelligent. The only bad thing was that her appearance was too splendid. At such a young age, she was already so attractive. When she grew older, she would probably be a one-in-a-million beauty. However, having a splendid appearance was not a good thing, as it might cause trouble. He walked around in the hall, and his gaze gradually fell on Jiang Ruan. Lian Xiao and Baizhi looked at each other, and their eyes were full of smiles. Lian Xiao said, we servants will definitely dress Miss up beautifully, and compare with second Miss. Jiang Quan said, Mother, this Taoist priest is an old friend of this son. He also came to my Fu 5 years ago. Presumably, he received instructions from the courtyard over there. Jiang Wan did not care, don't take it to heart. Jiang Wan was also the daughter of the Jiang Fu, so she ought to come out and meet the Furins. In the reception hall, Xia Yan was leading Jiang Su in conversation with a group of Furins and young ladies. Today, the guests were all womenfolk, and all of them had some status in the court. The Shu daughter could not come out to receive the guests, so it was the mistress of the household and the daughter who received the ladies together. Everyone looked curiously at the wooden chest, and the old Jiang madam smiled as she instructed Kai Ke to open it. Kai Ke opened it as instructed and carefully carried out a white jade Buddha from within. This bodhisattva sculpture was vivid and lifelike. Its eyebrows and eyes were vivid, as if it was alive. The most precious one was carved out of a whole block of white jade. It was natural and seemed to be very valuable. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. Jiang Chao said, as soon as grandson saw this bodhisattva, he felt that she looked very familiar. When I looked carefully, isn't that my grandmother? I will buy it. I only hope that bodhisattva will bless me and keep my grandmother healthy. As soon as these words came out, everyone was startled and unconsciously looked at Jiang Wan with fear in their eyes. Even if she was as beautiful as a flower, in the eyes of everyone, she was no different from a demon. The old Jiang madam looked at them without batting an eyelid. At this moment, a shrill yell suddenly came from the hall. Where did this demon come from? It was a huge double-sided embroidery scroll with 100 longevity characters embroidered all over it. Not to mention the embroidery, just the thought and engineering involved was shocking. Mother! Su Kong Dao Zhang is an expert. Jiang Quan brushed off the old Jiang madam's intentions. Turning his head to face Su Kong Dao Zhang, he anxiously asked, is what Dao Zhang said true? Today, she did not put on any makeup, only a light rouge on her cheeks, which made her jade-like skin appear sparkling and translucent. Step by step, she walked in from outside the hall, her skirt not moving in the slightest. Although she was still young, she actually had a kind of charm. Xia Yan smiled, I have troubled Furen. Su was just a little frightened, but now she is fine. No one had heard of this part, and thought to themselves, no wonder Jiang Quan had said that this Taoist priest was an old friend. Had he told Jiang Ruan's fortune 5 years ago? At the side, Jiang Li let out an almost inaudible sneer. When it came to pleasing the old Jiang madam, Jiang Chao's methods were really at his fingertips. He specifically picked beautiful words to say, and the old Jiang madam just fell for it. All the Furens present had never seen Su Kong Dao Zhang before, so when they heard Jiang Quan's words, they all felt relieved. How can this be considered a joke? Xia Yan followed with a smile, Gu Furen has raised a good son. That day, the entire capital knew of the elegant bearing of the Zhuangyuan. She spoke sincerely and candidly, as if she was sincerely happy for Lu Furen, with such an elegant bearing of the Zhuangyuan, I wonder which family's daughter will have the good fortune to marry the Zhuangyuan. With Jiang Chao and Jiang Su in front of them, everyone turned their gazes to Jiang Ruan, wanting to see what good things Jiang Ruan could bring out. Jiang Ruan smiled slightly, my gift, for the time being, cannot be taken out. Impossible. Xia Yan stared blankly, she is the eldest young miss of our Fu. Lu Zhu thought for a moment, why don't Nubi go outside and find a craftsman? It's not a solution to keep on breaking it. Why would Ruan Yang want to harm the entire Jiangfu? Jiang Ruan asked. How could she be willing to harm it so easily? Step by step, she wanted to crush it, turn it into dregs, and forever disappear from this world. I heard that the Zongbing Darren is iron-blooded and valiant, and that he is deeply in love with Furen. When Ruan Yang saw that the fragrant pouch on Furen's waist was embroidered with a shield instead of flowers and plants, she made a wild guess. Looking at it now, it seems that it was an accident. Xia Yan stared blankly for a moment, Su Kong Dao Zhang. Then, she apologized to the crowd, a few days ago, I invited this Dao Zhang to perform a religious ceremony for the Jiangfu. I did not expect that he would arrive today. Quickly stop arguing, Xia Yan said with a smile, Su, take out your birthday gift and let Zumo have a look. Su Kong Dao Zhang had already walked in. Seeing him, Jiang Quan was polite and said, long time no see. Ever since Lu Furen had arrived, she had been somewhat reserved. She was not very familiar with the social circles of the upper class. Fortunately, Lu Furen herself was the daughter of a scholar, so she was not lacking in manners. Hearing Gu Furen's words, she was somewhat embarrassed, Furen need not tease me. As soon as these words were spoken, Jiang Chao's expression froze, and Xia Yan was also stunned. Indeed, as the in-laws of the old Jiang madam's birthday banquet, not a single person from the Xia family was present. Even if they did not come, they should have sent someone to bring a message and present a gift. However, from the beginning until now, there had indeed been no news of Xia Yan. Naturally, the Xia family could not have not come because Jiang Ruan had not sent a gift, but what exactly had happened? The suspicious gazes of the crowd caused Jiang Quan to lose face, and he glared at Xia Yan. Xia Yan hurriedly said, your maternal grandmother's health has not been good recently, and the Fu has been overworked, so she did not attend the banquet. Seeing this, Su Kong Dao Zhang said, this poor monk has calculated the 8 characters of the birth of eldest Jiang Fu's 8 characters. She is known as the heavenly cursed lone star, cursing both her husband and mother, cursing all her relatives throughout her life, and bringing about a bloody calamity for her family. This is the innate demonic fate. Jiang Su ordered the servant beside her to present a small sandalwood chest. The chest was also exquisitely made. The butterfly opened the chest, and together with the dragonfly, unfurled the contents. Naturally not, Xia Yan wiped her tears, but Ruan, She could not continue, and her expression was extremely mournful. His eyebrows were high, and he was dressed in a blue straight-cut gown. His entire person was refreshed and cheerful, and no longer had the gloomy appearance of a few days ago. Those who were not in the know would have some doubts about the previous rumors. Jiang Chao took out a small wooden chest the height of a stool from behind him and presented it. This is a birthday gift from grandson to Zumo. Jiang Su and Jiang Li naturally did not care about a few months' worth of silver, and on normal days, Jiang Quan would occasionally subsidize them. Jiang Dan and Jiang Wan, on the other hand, did not have any relatives to send gifts to subsidize their household expenses. The servant girls and old women in their own courtyards also had to be rewarded, so their lives were extremely difficult. If that's the case, Jiang Wan suddenly bowed to Xia Yan, maternal grandmother is bedridden, and mother is extremely worried. Yet, she still has to organize the birthday banquet for Zumo, and even make the banquet so beautiful. This is truly the Jiang family's good fortune, and Ruan Yang is truly ashamed. Su Kong Daozhang stared blankly for a moment, then shook his head and said, young Mrs. Fate is too strong. With the power of this poor monk, I am truly powerless. Where can we find the money to hire a craftsman? Jiang Wan smiled faintly. Xia Yan had reduced the monthly silver allowance of the young miss in the Fu by more than half, and it was obvious who it was for. Perhaps she had hoped that she would not have the money to buy a birthday gift, or that she would not even be able to afford the slightly better materials. Today, at the old Jiang madam's birthday banquet, she would not be able to present a gift in front of everyone, and it would be better to lose face. Eldest miss? Su Kong Daozhang said, 5 years ago, the one who was sent to the residence, I did not expect that she would actually be this old. That is correct. He seemed to have said these words unintentionally, and Xia Yan hurriedly said, Chao, Interrupting his words, everyone had already begun to ponder, thinking that, in the end, she did not have a biological mother by her side to guide her. Although her appearance was very good, she was still lacking in the ways of the world compared to Jiang Su. This. Xia Yan looked at Jiang Wan with some difficulty, as if it was very difficult for her to speak. This poor monk never lies. Su Kong Daozhang twirled his beard, moreover, that demon is in the Fu. Jiang Su was afraid that she had not clenched her teeth to the point of breaking them, and her heart was naturally filled with endless hatred. After talking for a while, Kai Kei and Du Wan came in, supporting the old Jiang madam. Everyone stood up and bowed, and the old Jiang madam smiled in response. Her spirit was hale and hearty, and there was not the slightest trace of the weakness that she had shown when she had been bedridden a few days ago. Seeing Jiang Wan, a trace of profound meaning flashed through the old Jiang madam's eyes. Kai Kei supported the old Jiang madam to the main seat in the hall. One by one, the Furins present presented their birthday gifts. Jiang Wan stood where she was and quietly looked at the grave and stern Taoist priest. When she heard the words 5 years ago, an indecipherable smile flashed across her lips. The only bad thing was that the Jiang Fu had been frequently stirring up trouble in the past few days, causing the Fu's silver expenditure to be enormous. Now that the situation was difficult to deal with, the housekeeper, Jiang Furen, Xia Yan, proposed to save money and coax the servants. Thus, she reduced the monthly allowance of several young ladies by more than half. On this matter, this poor monk came here on behalf of Furen to pray for the Fu, Su Kong Daozhang said. However, when this poor monk entered, I saw that the Fu was shrouded in a black aura, and feared that a demon was stirring up trouble. The assistant minister's wife narrowed her eyes and said, however, some time ago, I heard that second miss fell into the water. How is she now? Jiang Wan suddenly realized, that's right, the last time I went to maternal grandfather's house, didn't maternal grandmother vomit blood and faint? She has not recovered yet. Heavenly cursed lone star. Father, do you also think that Ruan Yang has the fate of being a heavenly cursed lone star? Jiang Wan looked at Jiang Quan. Exactly. Su Kong Daozhang nodded. The young lady of the Bureau of Military Affairs asked curiously, Miss Jiang, why don't I see your older sister? Jiang Wan looked at the old Jiang Furen, who had already closed her eyes, as if she did not want to watch this lame farce. Xia Yan said, Daozhang, what should we do now? Everyone was slightly disappointed. Jiang Su asked, "Why? Dejijia, can't take a look? What are you laughing at?" Jiang Li, who had been taking pleasure in other people's misfortune, asked. Jiang Wan shook her head and said, "Dao Zhang's words are reasonable. However, according to what Dao Zhang has said, I have cursed my parents and relatives, but in the 5 years I have spent in the residence, I have not cursed anyone. Apart from my own weakened body, the lives of the people in the residence have been getting better and better." "What do you mean by this?" Her words were extremely clever, and the old Jiang Furen laughed and scolded, "What bodhisattva?" Although Xia Yan had a smile on her face, the handkerchief in her hand was almost twisted into two. This assistant minister's wife had always spoken so harshly. Jiang Su was young, and her ability to conceal her emotions was not as good as Xia Yan's. She could not wait to block the assistant minister's wife's mouth. On her feet, she wore embroidered shoes with a precious pattern. Her entire person was intelligent, elegant, and beautiful. Today, she did not wear a veil, and it was unknown what miraculous medicine had been used on her face, but the scars were much better. There was a thick layer of powder on her face, completely covering the scars. Her skin was considered fair, but because the powder was too thick, although she was still dainty and pleasant, she was not as elegant as she was usually. Jiang Chao chuckled and did not speak. Jiang Su looked at Jiang Wan, "Dejijia, what is the present that you and Zumo gave? Could it be that she is hiding it? Quickly let us open our eyes." However, Xia Yan shook her head, "But she is, after all, Master's daughter. How could Master bear to separate from her? Does Dao Zhang have any good ideas?" Old Jiang Madam frowned, "What kind of foul atmosphere have you created?" She was completely impolite. Jiang Wan wore a crabapple-colored embroidered cloud brocade robe with everything goes according to plan. She wore a 3-piece skirt with plum blossoms and bamboo leaves embroidered with flowers. She was draped in a bright red embroidered cloud brocade. She had a soft ponytail, and her hair was coiled into an elegant and unique round bun. There was a carved crabapple bracelet inserted in her hair. Her creamy white hand wore a tricolored silk bracelet. She wore a peacock-patterned belt with a perfume pouch embroidered with wings of red plum blossoms. On her feet, she wore soft-soled boots. Su Kong Dao Zhang looked at Jiang Wan. If it was in the past, it would have been fine to place her in a residence. But now that you have brought her back, this evil aura is growing by the day. It would be best to find a family temple and have her stay there for a few years. Once she has calmed down a little, perhaps it will be resolved." When everyone saw this, they all held their breaths. Su Kong Dao Zhang said, "Although this humble monk does not know who Miss is, this humble monk dares to conclude that the black aura in the Fu is caused by this Mississippi." Gu Furen seemed to have just thought of something, speaking of which, the Fu's eldest miss is slightly older than second Mississippi. "Is there an engagement?" A trace of embarrassment flashed across Jiang Su's face. "Eldest sister does not usually come out. Perhaps there is no one here that she is familiar with." There was a trace of reverence in her tone. When Jiang Su saw this, she fiercely twisted her handkerchief. She did not understand why Jiang Wan, who had grown up in the residence, had such a noble bearing. When the Jiang family was mentioned, everyone only knew her name, Jiang Su. However, ever since Jiang Wan had returned, Jiang Wan had unexpectedly surpassed her. Even the appearance that she was most proud of was not good. In her heart, she scolded this foxy woman. Jiang Wan was so young, yet her every gesture had the charm of a mature woman. It made people feel disgusted just by looking at her. Old Jiang Madam also smiled. "Su's thoughts are much more attentive than your older brother's." With Jiang Chao taking the lead, Jiang Su also stood up and curled her lips. "Older brother has given such a good present. Su Nyang really does not have the face to take out her own things." From the side, everyone saw a middle-aged Taoist wearing a green robe and hat appear in front of the hall. He carried a bundle on his back and held a peach tree branch in his hand. His expression was grim. "I have let eldest brother see a joke," Jiang Ruan said with a smile, "but speaking of which, why did maternal grandfather's family come today? Could it be that because Ruan Nyang forgot to prepare a gift for visiting, they will not even attend Zuma's birthday banquet?" When Jiang Quan heard Jiang Ruan's words, he was already somewhat unhappy. Su Kong Dao Zhang paused and said, This humble monk also does not know." The rain continued to fall incessantly. The roof of Ruan Ju's house, which had been temporarily vacated, had been in disrepair for many years and had unexpectedly begun to leak. Rainwater flowed through the hole in the roof and dripped into the room, causing the room to be extremely damp. Dewdrops found an iron bucket from outside and placed it at the hole. Although it would not drip everywhere for the time being, the cold wind that blew through the hole was enough to make them feel cold. Ruan Yang greets the Furin of the army commander. Jiang Ruan smiled and greeted her. Jiang Quan looked straight at her. He only felt that although Jiang Ruan was looking at him with a smile, that pair of beautiful eyes seemed to have been immersed in ice, causing one's heart to feel cold. His vision blurred for a moment, as if he could see Zhao Mei lying on the bed with a haggard appearance, coldly questioning him. His heart panicked and he suddenly felt stifled. He coldly said, "Do you want to harm the entire Jiangfu?" "Not at all." Xia Yan was startled and looked inquisitively at Gu Furin. Why did Furin ask this? "Do you really want to freeze Miss alive until she falls ill?" Lian Xiao angrily said, "This is really too hateful." When Jiang Ruan heard this, there was a trace of mockery in her smile. If Xia Yan had said this, those who did not know would have thought that she and Jiang Quan had a deep father-daughter relationship. If not for Imperial Censor Wang's memorial, Jiang Quan was afraid that he could not wait to leave her in the rural residence for a long time and pretend that she, the Jiang family's young miss, did not exist. When Jiang Ruan walked to the front, Gu Furin smiled and said, "You are Jiang Ruan." "So that's how it is," Jiang Ruan suddenly understood and said with a smile, "So Ruan Yang has just returned from the rural residence to the Jiangfu, and the Jiangfu always has some inexplicable incidents? There is no need to trouble yourself. After today, someone will naturally come and repair it." Jiang Ruan walked to the dressing table and sat down. "Go and dress yourself. Presumably, some of the guests have already arrived. Even if second younger sister is in front to entertain the guests, as an older sister, I cannot always hide in the room." Everyone else in the hall was somewhat embarrassed. As the atmosphere grew cold, Gu Furin, who was in the Zongbing Darren Fu, said with a smile, "What imperial examinations are you talking about? Isn't the mother of the top scorer here?" As she said this, she looked towards Lu Furin, who was sitting quietly at the side. Jiang Ruan gently refused, "No." However, her tone was firm. The Momo ordered the servants to one side. Jiang Quan had also arrived with Jiang Li and Jiang Dan. Jiang Chao also followed behind. When he saw the old Jiang madam, he stepped forward and said, "Grandson wishes Zumo a long life, riches, and health." Jiang Su lowered her head and modestly said, "Sun Yang's embroidery is not good. Time was short and I could only embroider to this extent. Zumo, please do not dislike it." "It's nothing," Gu Furin smiled, "it's just that I have never seen the eldest young miss of this Fu and am somewhat curious." Gu Yi had often mentioned the eldest young miss of the Jiang family in the Fu since the Lantern Festival. Gu Yi was the youngest son in the family, and his brothers were either married or engaged. Gu Yi was not young anymore, and the Jiang family was considered a prestigious family. If the eldest Jiang young Mrs. character and temperament were not bad, it was not impossible to consider. Because of this matter, Gu Furin had readily attended the old Jiang madam's birthday banquet. Jiang Su stared blankly for a moment, and two red clouds immediately appeared on her pretty face. She lowered her head and walked to Xia Yan's side, as if she was somewhat bashful from Furin's words just now. There was a hidden meaning behind these words. Everyone present was a shrewd person, and they had a lot of social interactions on a daily basis. How could they not understand this logic? Xia Yan pretended to carelessly touch her temples. Su Kong Dao Zhang immediately said, that is because the people in the residence are not Mrs. relatives. They are merely farmers and servants. However, the assistant minister's wife did not let this matter go. Then how is the Fu's second young master? I heard that he did not do well in the imperial examinations, and even had one of his fingers cut off. Sigh, at such a young age, one must be able to withstand failure. Just like the two in my family, they did not do very well in the imperial examinations, and all day long they still do not behave properly. The two young masters of Assistant Minister Gao's Fu had taken the imperial examinations at the same time as Jiang Chao, and had both obtained tribute yuan. All the Furins looked at her in astonishment, thinking, what was wrong with the daughter of the Jiang family, who had come from the wilderness? Looking at her bearing, it was clear that she was a noble from the palace. The Furins and young ladies present had naturally heard of the incident on the Ling Long boat on the day of the Lantern Festival. Recalling the scene of Jiang Su Su at that time, the way they looked at Xia Yan and her daughter was different. Dejected, Lu Zhu said, this is really making things difficult. Taisher Furin smiled and said, this must be the second young Mississippi. Now that she has matured, she is becoming more and more charming. In a few more years, who knows how many marriage proposals will break through the doorstep. However, Su Kong Dao Zhang said to Jiang Quan, Darren, didn't this poor monk perform a divination with this young miss 5 years ago, warning her not to return to the Fu, or else it will cause a great calamity? Even if Darren is soft-hearted, you cannot bring about your own destruction. Younger sister, please don't say that. Jiang Chao scratched his head, my gifts have always been inferior to yours. She looked at the gentle young girl in front of her, and secretly ground her teeth to the point of breaking. Suddenly smiling, she said, it's nothing. Thinking of what would happen in a moment, Xia Yan felt elated. Dao Zhang, what are you saying? Jiang Su Su said, how can my Dejie be a monster? She said it with gratitude, but Xia Yan felt a prickle on her back. Jiang Ruan's words implied that her own mother was bedridden, yet she still had the heart to organize the birthday banquet, which was unfilial. Today, in front of all the Furins, she had been talking and laughing, and had not revealed the slightest bit of melancholy. It was likely that all the Furins were currently pondering in their hearts. As it turns out, there are things that Dao Zhang is unaware of. Jiang Wan smiled and said, Mother, do you think that I am the bane of all existence? The embroidery was exquisite, and the colors of the patterns were bright and dignified. The handwriting was also meticulous, and the stitching technique could not be seen with a single glance. Even in the whole of the great Jin dynasty, it was considered to be of the highest quality. Jiang Su Su was indeed talented, and in the field of embroidery, she could be said to be the best in the capital. This filial piety and modesty immediately caused many of the Furins present to gasp in admiration. Mother, what exactly is going on? Jiang Chao asked, what does Dao Zhang mean by these words? Chapter 76. A monk in yellow robes slowly walked in from outside the hall. His beard had already turned completely white, and he held a Buddhist staff in his hand. Compared to Su Kong Dao Zhang, this old monk had a benevolent countenance, and his movements had a holy temperament that could not be profaned. He was truly like the eldest disciple of Buddha. When she saw this monk, Lian Xiao let out a long sigh of relief. Someone in the hall recognized the monk and exclaimed, isn't this great master Huizhu? Why is he here? Great Master Huizhu's reputation was much greater than that of Su Kong Dao Zhang. All the wealthy families in the capital knew that at the end of last year, there had been an eminent monk in the capital who was highly skilled in Buddhism. When Xia Yan saw Huizhu, she knew that things were not good, but Jiang Ruan still stood in the hall with a smile on her face. She was suspicious as to how Jiang Ruan had managed to establish a relationship with this monk. However, thinking of today's matter, she absolutely could not let Huiju spoil it. She smiled and said, "Why has the great master come to the Fu? Is he also here to exorcise the evil spirit?" Huiju put his palms together, slightly bowed his head and said, "Amitabha Buddha." He then turned to Jiang Wan and said, "Mississippi, de Jijia, you usually do not leave the house. When did you get to know this great master?" Jiang Su asked innocently, but her words were critical. If Jiang Wan was a virtuous maiden, even a monk would not be able to see her so casually. Jiang Wan sighed softly and looked at the old Jiang madam, who had opened her eyes at some point. "This is my gift to Zumu." Jiang Quan asked in a low voice, "What happened?" Compared to Su Kong Dao Zhang, he naturally understood that great master Huiju was more trustworthy. However, since he was related to Jiang Wan, he could not help but be somewhat suspicious. "A few days ago, Lin Zixiang and I went out to pick out some gifts for Zumu, but we were not satisfied. Zumu now has no worries about food and clothing, and even some grand and majestic gifts may not be able to catch her eye." Wan Yang thought that in this world, nothing was more important than safety, health, and lasting good fortune. "I heard that there is a great master Huiju in the capital who is a disciple of Buddha. Coincidentally, Lin Zixiang's Fu has some friendship with the great master, so I asked Lin Zixiang to do a favor and invite the great master to pray for Zumu. In the capital, as long as there were wealthy families who believed in Buddhism, most of them had been invited by Huiju to preach Buddhist scriptures. Lin Zixiang's mother had always believed in Buddhism. This reason was sufficient, and no one would doubt it. She spoke with sincerity, as if it would be a waste of her sincerity if he did not believe her. Jiang Wan softly replied, "If Wan Yang had known earlier that mother had already invited a Taoist priest to pray for the Jiang Fu, she definitely would not have acted on her own." She gave Huiju a gentle salute. "I am indebted to the great master's favor that he is willing to make a trip here to pray for Zumu. Wan Yang is endlessly grateful. It's just that now we already have a Dao Zhang, so it would be unnecessary for me to see him like this." She smiled and said, "However, Taoist priest is busy with exorcism and has no time to pray for grandmother. Master, please pray for grandmother now. The blessings from Buddha will definitely last for a long time." Everyone was slightly surprised when they heard what she said. Those who were more thoughtful wondered if this daughter of the Jiang family had been scared silly. Even now, she still had the mind to bring up the matter of praying for blessings. Those who were less thoughtful were full of praise for Jiang Wan. Even at this time, she still cared about praying for her own Zumu without caring about her cursed fate of being alone and cursed. Her filial piety was commendable. On the other hand, Xia Yan and the others, including Jiang Quan, the son, only cared about asking about the fate and did not care about the old madam's feelings at the moment. The old Jiang madam looked at Jiang Wan indifferently. Although she did not say anything, there was a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. However, she did not speak up to stop them and only watched quietly. This matter of praying for blessings, Taoist priest can also do it. Xia Yan was afraid that something strange would happen in the middle of the process and said, "Why bother the great master?" Among the Furans present, there was finally someone who could not bear to watch any longer and reminded, in any case, this is also the eldest miss of the Jiang family's kind intentions. There is no need to disappoint the child. That's right, great master Huiju's reputation in the capital speaks for itself. How many people wish to pray for blessings but are unable to do so? The voices of the crowd grew louder and louder. There were those who sincerely felt that Jiang Wan was pitiful, and there were also those who wanted to fish in troubled waters and join in the commotion. Only Jiang Wan stood quietly in her original spot with a smile on her lips, seemingly unaffected by the situation in front of her. Huiju was the closest to her and could naturally see her expression clearly. Ever since he had appeared in the hall, the young girl in front of him still stood ramrod straight with a smile on her face. It was as if she had everything in the palm of her hand. He recalled that after Jiang Wan had left that day, it was indeed as she had said, that the prefectural magistrate's Fu had been haunted. The next day, she had invited him to exorcise the evil spirit. Could it be that, as she had said, there really were people in this world who knew the past and knew the future? He inwardly denied this possibility. This eldest miss of the Jiang family must have had an expert guiding her from behind. Otherwise, how could she know so many things? He shook his head and said, "Today, this old monk should have only been praying for the old madam of the Fu, but after listening to Taoist priest's words, this old monk has something to say." When Xia Yan heard this, she immediately smiled and said, "Great master, if you have anything to say, you can say it in private after the birthday banquet." "A monk does not lie," Hui Ju said indifferently, "it's just that this old monk sees that eldest Mrs. forehead is full, the bridge of her nose is straight, and her lips are plump. She is a person of good fortune." Taoist priest's words about the fate of the heavenly cursed lone star are heresy. His words were spoken in a righteous and awe-inspiring manner, causing others to have no choice but to believe him. After Su Kong Dao Zhang had seen Hui Ju, he had already felt somewhat guilty. He only knew a few little tricks. Normally, he would deceive ordinary people, but this time, it was only because he had received Xia Yan's instructions. Hui Ju's reputation in the capital was not something that he could compare with. However, now that things had come to this, he could only brace himself and persevere. Su Kong Dao Zhang assumed an arrogant posture and said, "Great master, could it be that you have seen wrongly? This poor monk is a disciple of Mount Mao and has never miscalculated when it comes to divination. I have already calculated this eldest Miss Zhang's birth date and 8 characters without error, but it is the heavenly cursed lone star." Jiang Wan smiled as she stood where she was and looked at Hui Ju. Compared to Su Kong, Hui Ju's trickery should be much more refined. For Hui Ju to be able to swindle for so many years without being discovered, he naturally had his own skills. Of course, the most important thing was still his disguise. No matter who saw him, they would not be able to associate this kind-looking, righteous monk with a face full of righteousness as a swindler. This time, not only did they need Hui Ju, but it was also a test for him. If Hui Ju could not even do this well, then there would be no need to support him in the future. Her gaze was deep and profound. "Hui Ju, let me see your abilities." Hui Ju listened to Su Kong Dao Zhang's words and was not angry. He said, "What Dao Zhang has said, forgive this old monk for being unable to agree." His attitude caused the surrounding Furins to feel even more respect. They felt that Hui Ju was neither servile nor overbearing, and was worthy of being an eminent monk of his generation. On the contrary, Su Kong Dao Zhang's attitude was arrogant, which unconsciously aroused the disgust of the crowd. Su Kong Dao Zhang was completely unaware of this. He only knew that he could not let Hui Ju ruin his speech, so he pretended to be angry and said, "Could it be that great master is deliberately making things difficult for this poor monk?" Hui Ju heaved a long sigh. If Dao Zhang insists on doing so, this old monk is powerless. However, I cannot watch Miss Jiang bear the blame for nothing. It is true that there is a black aura in the Fu, but it is not caused by the heavenly curse lone star. Rather, it is caused by a passing demon that is causing mischief. Presumably, it has attached itself to the people in the Fu. That person is not eldest Jiang Mississippi Lian Xiao, who was behind him, wanted to laugh. Such strange words, yet the Furins in the hall had grave expressions as they listened, as if they firmly believed him without a doubt. Without waiting for Su Kong Dao Zhang to speak, Hui Ju said, "This old monk will start thinking of ways to force the demon out. This is not good." Xia Yan said anxiously, looking at Jiang Quan. In his heart, Jiang Quan was somewhat hesitant. He was anxious to get rid of the Jiang Fu's recent bad luck. Although he did not trust the people that Jiang Wan had found, Great Master Hui Ju's reputation spoke for itself. If he could really find that demon, wouldn't the Jiang Fu be at peace? Xia Yan saw his hesitant appearance and became even more anxious. She had calculated everything, but she had not expected that Jiang Wan would actually call for Great Master Hui Ju. She would give them a taste of their own medicine. Great Master Huiju's reputation was much higher than that of Su Kong Daozhang. Once an objection was raised, everyone would probably lean towards Great Master Huiju's side. Thinking of this, Xia Yan was both hateful and angry. Without waiting for Jiang Quan to make a choice, the old Jiang madam spoke, "Since Great Master has the heart, then I will have to trouble Great Master." Zumu? Jiang Su frowned. The old Jiang madam did not even look at her, and said to Xia Yan, "Wife, haven't you always wanted to get rid of the Jiang Fu's bad luck? Great Master Huiju is an eminent monk, wife, are you not happy?" "I dare not." Xia Yan squeezed out a smile. Su Kong Daozhang was ignored to one side, and Huiju put his palms together. "Amitabha, this old monk needs to go to each courtyard to take a look." "This is not difficult." Jiang Quan said, "Lead the way for Great Master." Immediately, 2 servant girls came forward to lead the way for Huiju. Huiju and the servant girl walked at the front, while Xia Yan and her daughter followed closely behind, most likely to prevent Huiju from playing any tricks. Jiang Quan and the Furins who had come to watch the excitement also followed. Kai Ke and Du Wan supported the old Jiang madam, all of them wanting to see what was going on. Jiang Chao's venomous gaze almost drowned her, but Jiang Wan only pretended not to see it. She called out to Su Kong Daozhang, "Daozhang, let's go together and take a look. Buddhism and Taoism each have their own strong points. Perhaps today will be a great way to increase one's cultivation." Her words were ridiculing, but her face held a gentle smile. For a moment, no one could figure out what she was thinking. Jiang Wan did not allow him to refuse, so Yan Qiao and Bai Ji surrounded Su Kong from the front and back. Su Kong had no choice but to brace himself and walk together. Huiju did as he had said and walked around each courtyard and each room. The few Yinyangs had not come out to receive guests today, and seeing such a scene, they were all somewhat surprised. The servants explained the reason to them, and they were bewildered in their hearts. Thus, they simply followed along. Huiju did not leave behind a single courtyard. The last courtyard was Hong Ying's. After hearing the ins and outs of the matter, Hong Ying hid behind Jiang Quan, still in a state of shock. Xia Yan frowned imperceptibly, but Hong Ying took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to take a quick look at Jiang Wan. After walking through all the courtyards and finding that they were safe and sound, Su Kong Daozhang could not help but provoke, "Great Master, didn't you say that there was a demon causing mischief? Now, it seems to be very peaceful. I am afraid that Great Master is mistaken." Huiju put his palms together, "Amitabha Buddha. Now, everyone, please follow this old monk to the main courtyard." In the central main courtyard of the Jiang Fu, in front of Jiang Quan's study, Huiju did not say anything. He only took out an incense burner from his bag and shook open the other cloth bag. Unexpectedly, there were some incense ashes. He poured the ashes into the incense burner and lit a joss stick. When the green smoke rose, he sat down cross-legged on the ground. With one hand looking at the wooden fish, and the other hand counting the prayer beads, he closed his eyes and began to meditate. Under such an atmosphere, everyone was somewhat nervous. Only Jiang Wan remained calm. Naturally, Xia Yan and Jiang Su were endlessly alarmed. Huiju recited sutras in this manner under the watchful eyes of everyone. At first, nothing happened, but after the time it takes to burn half an incense stick, for some unknown reason, a large dark mass of things actually flew down from the sky. Everyone was startled. The sky was originally gloomy, and that dark mass of things almost covered the entire sky above the Jiangfu. When it came closer, it could be seen clearly that it was actually hundreds of large, black-winged bats, flapping their wings as they flew over in a black mass. The madams and young ladies present all cried out in alarm. However, the black-winged bats did not stop after flying over the main courtyard. They continued flying forward, flying back and forth, and finally stopped in the air above Su Xianyuan. After a while, the large bats suddenly rushed into a room. That room was originally a lady's boudoir, and there was even a maidservant sweeping inside. When such a large swarm of bats suddenly rushed in, the maidservant immediately ran out with a pale face. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Jiang Su and Xia Yan's faces were pale. Great Master Huiju stopped reciting sutras. The demons have already revealed themselves. Whose room is that? The assistant minister's wife took the lead to ask. Another Furin replied, it seems to be the courtyard of the Jiang Fu's second Mississippi. Jiang Chao's face was ashen. Great Master, what do you mean? Could it be that my younger sister is a demon? Huiju indifferently said, the second Jiang Miss is not a demon, but the evildoer causing mischief is currently in second Jiang Miss room. Second Jiang Miss has been staying with the demon for many years, and has been possessed, thus bringing disaster to the Fu. Everything was fine, so why would my younger sister be possessed by a demon? Jiang Chao's expression was unfriendly. Everything that has happened in this Fu has only begun since eldest younger sister returned. Jiang Wan smiled and did not speak, as if she had not heard Jiang Chao's slander. Huiju said, perhaps second Jiang Miss had previously encountered some danger, or perhaps she had been ill. The spiritual consciousness of an ill person is weak, and thus the demon took advantage of her weakness to enter. Didn't second Jiang Miss fall into the water on the Ling Long boat a few days ago? The assistant minister's wife smiled. At that time, she was fished out of the water, dripping wet, and on her last breath. I'm afraid that was when something unforeseen happened. It ba. Huiju put his palms together. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone understood one after another that eldest Jiang Miss was not born with the heavenly cursed solitary star, but rather the evil aura brought about by the second Jiang Mississippi. Recalling how Jiang Ruan had not lost her composure even when she had been wrongly accused, and had instead faced it with a smile, the Furins all sighed in admiration in their hearts. Since there was nothing to fight for, he started to speak up. So eldest Jiang Miss is innocent. Like I said, a young lady who looks quite good has suffered such humiliation for no reason. She almost became a scapegoat. TSK, could it be that second Jiang Miss had long known that she was possessed by a demon, and thus wanted to pin the shit on eldest young Miss? Eldest young Miss is all alone, without anyone to speak up for her. If not for the eminent monk today, I'm afraid that her life would have been ruined. The voices of the crowd were neither loud nor soft, just enough to be heard by others. Jiang Su felt that she had lost face, and her heart was filled with extreme resentment. She did not expect that today, she would fail on the verge of success, and even be counterattacked by Jiang Ruan. Thinking of this, her heart was somewhat flustered. Now that the inauspicious person was her, what would she do in the future? Fortunately, this bald donkey had not said that she was born with the heavenly cursed solitary star. Even if she had been possessed, she would be fine after a few days. Xia Yan was so angry that she wished she could pounce on Jiang Ruan and bite her to death. She was sure that there was something wrong with that great master Huiju. She was afraid that he had already made contact with Jiang Ruan. Although she did not understand why such a prestigious eminent monk would help Jiang Ruan, Xia Yan believed that the black-winged bats today were definitely the doing of Huiju. However, they had been following behind from the beginning to the end, and Huiju had not made any moves. How did he achieve this? Old Jiang Madam did not say a word from beginning to end, and only quietly observed Jiang Ruan. Jiang Quan had not believed it before, but now that he had seen so many black-winged bats rushing into Jiang Su's room for no reason, he somewhat believed Huiju's words and asked, Great Master, what should I do with my daughter now? Jiang Ruan's smile revealed a trace of mockery. Even now, Jiang Quan was still concerned about Jiang Su. Sure enough, the father-daughter relationship was deep. If it had been her who had been possessed by a demon, Jiang Quan would have felt that she was filthy just by looking at her, and would have wished for nothing more than for her to disappear from this world. Huiju said, we only need to get rid of the bad luck. This old monk will then write some Buddhist scriptures and paste them in the room. After a few days, everything will be fine. However, he hesitated for a moment before continuing, second Mrs. Body has been possessed by a demon for too long. In just a few days, there is nothing we can do. Then what should we do? Jiang Quan anxiously asked, I beg Great Master to save my daughter. Jiang Darren need not worry, Hui Ju said, this old monk knows of a family temple. It would be best for second miss to go there and cultivate for a period of time. There are Buddhist scriptures in the temple all day long. After a long time, the filthy air will be removed, and second miss will naturally be safe and sound. Xia Yan was startled, but Jiang Su had already started shouting, I am not possessed by any demon, I don't want to go to the temple. Jiang Quan shouted coldly and looked at Great Master Hui Ju, how long will you be gone for? Great Master Hui Ju said in a low voice, this old monk does not dare to guarantee, but within 3 to 5 years, I am afraid that second miss will not be able to return to the Fu. In a split second, Xia Yan's expression became extremely unsightly, and she turned to look at Jiang Wan. Just now, they had wanted Jiang Wan to stay in the temple for 3 to 5 years, but now Jiang Wan had returned the favor and wanted Jiang Su to stay in the temple for a few years. How ruthless! She sorrowfully said, is there any other way? Great Master, I only have this one daughter. Great Master Hui Ju shook his head, sighed, and said no more. Although Jiang Quan was struggling in his heart, if Jiang Su stayed in the Jiang Fu, it would only cause more trouble in the Fu. Moreover, if Jiang Su stayed in the temple, the bad luck on his body could also be removed. Although he was reluctant, Jiang Quan understood that this was the best method. Seeing Jiang Quan's expression, Xia Yan became even more anxious. Jiang Chao had already disregarded everything and shouted loudly at Hui Ju, you bald donkey fishing for fame. You are clearly using a pretense to deceive people. See if I don't tear your mouth apart. Although Hui Ju was afraid in his heart, he still maintained a calm and indifferent expression on his face. He retreated a few steps and did not say a word. Stop him. A few of Jiang Quan's bodyguards stopped Jiang Chao. Jiang Chao was usually seen as a good person, but at this moment, his eyes were ferocious and he was speaking rudely. Upon seeing this, a few of the Furins present, who wanted to choose a husband for their daughters to marry, had other plans in their hearts. Jiang Quan had a slight headache. This pair of children usually made him the proudest, but recently, they had repeatedly disappointed him. They were impetuous, short-sighted, and even inferior to Jiang Wan. Jiang Wan. He stared blankly and looked at Jiang Wan, only to see that Jiang Wan was still standing in the same place with a smile on her face. She was obviously involved in the whole matter, but she looked relaxed and at ease, as if she had nothing to do with it. She was like a person who had everything under control, quietly watching the development of the situation from the sidelines, and coldly watching other people's disputes. Jiang Quan could not help but shiver in his heart. He heard Jiang Wan say, second older brother's words are wrong. Great Master was invited back by Ruan Yang. If second older brother suspects Great Master, it means that he suspects Ruan Yang. In second older brother's opinion, why would a person like Great Master be ordered around by Ruan Yang? For money. 2 copper coins per month, even the incense in an ordinary temple is much more expensive than this. The crowd was in an uproar again. 2 copper coins per month was the monthly allowance of an ordinary second-rank servant girl. Jiang Wan was the Jiang Fu's daughter, yet she was unexpectedly thrifty and self-restrained. This caused people to speculate for no reason. Was it because the Jiang Fu was currently embarrassingly short of money, or was it because Xia Yan, the mistress of the household, was harsh on her stepdaughter? Jiang Quan only felt that he had lost all face. He glared at Xia Yan and forcefully suppressed his anger. He heard Jiang Wan say, second older brother believes that Great Master Hui Ju is a swindler, but Ruan Yang has yet to say that Su Kong Dao Zhang is a swindler. Since second younger sister has been possessed by a demon, Wan Yang is not destined to be the bane of all existence. 5 years ago, that Dao Zhang had divined Wan Yang's fortune. In that case, didn't Wan Yang stay in the rural residence for 5 years in vain? How are we going to settle this account? No matter how we calculate it, it will not be clear. It would be better to ask the capital governor. I am on good terms with the young miss of the capital governor's Fu, so perhaps he can make an exception. She had a gentle smile on her face, but every word she said contained a strong aggression. She was so overbearing that it left people with no room to retreat. Su Kong Dao Zhang was already drenched in cold sweat and looked towards Xia Yan with a pleading gaze. Xia Yan said stiffly, Dao Zhang is an old friend, there must be some misunderstanding. Wan Yang, you are still young, and there are many things that you are not clear about. It is better not to settle accounts. Jiang Quan finally could not bear the crowd's gazes of anticipation and shouted in a low voice, enough. Xia Yan promptly kept quiet. Hui Ju said, this old monk will let my disciples send over the Buddhist scriptures. This matter is over, this old monk should also take his leave. Jiang Wan smiled, no, great master has forgotten one thing. Hui Ju was slightly startled, only to hear Jiang Wan continue, today, Wan Yang invited great master to pray for Zuma, but unexpectedly, great master has exorcised evil for the Jiang Fu. If it is convenient for great master, please pray for Zuma, alright? Everyone was slightly surprised that Jiang Wan had not forgotten to pray for old Jiang Madam at this time. On the other hand, the old Jiang Madam's face remained expressionless. There is no need. Today, great master and I are both tired. Helping my Jiang Fu to purge these demons and monsters is the greatest blessing to me. Finished speaking, she said, Kai Kei, help me back to my room. Unexpectedly, she left without saying a word. Seeing this, the Furins hurriedly got up and took their leave. After watching such a good show today, it was not convenient for them to stay for long. However, from tomorrow onwards, there would certainly be more rumors about the Jiang family in the capital. In a short while, all the guests had left. Jiang Wan smiled slightly, Great Master, are you leaving? I will send you off. Hui Ju nodded. When they reached the Fu's entrance, Jiang Wan looked at him and smiled, many thanks to Great Master for lending a hand today. What Miss said at that time was true. Hui Ju lowered his brows and restrained his gaze, as if he was a benevolent Buddha. When your father returns and sees you like this, he will punish you again. We will talk about this another day. Gu Furen scolded him with a smile. As soon as he heard that Gu Darren was returning, Gu Yi immediately slipped away like a wisp of smoke. After he left, Gu Furen heaved a deep sigh. Does Furen think that the eldest Jiang young miss is not good? The servant girl beside her asked softly. You have also seen it today. The waters of the Jiang family are not shallow. The eldest Jiang young miss has just returned to the Fu and has already set off such a big storm. Today, she was still able to escape unscathed. Her thoughts are not as simple as they appear on the surface. She shook her head, I only want to find an innocent young lady to be Yi-er's wife. That young lady's temper is too heavy. Chapter 77. The rain in the capital had been pattering non-stop for almost a month. Many farmlands had already suffered from flooding and the price of grain in the capital had also begun to rise, even if it was old grain. However, there was not much grain in this world. Apart from the wealthy who could buy fresh grain from outside at a high price, those who lived more ordinary lives had their grain reduced day by day, and some even began to be unable to eat. Everyone prayed for this spring rain to stop quickly, but the heavens did not wish for it, and the rain did not stop. Jiang Quan had already arranged matters at the family temple. In a few days, Jiang Su would be sent to the temple. Although Xia Yan and Jiang Chao had been trying to persuade Jiang Quan had already made up his mind. Because of Xia Jun, the Xia family did not intercede on Jiang Su's behalf, so the matter was settled. After the day of old Jiang Madam's birthday, as expected, there were many more rumors about the Jiang family in the capital. The first to bear the brunt was that Su Kong Dao Zhang had fabricated Jiang Ruan's fate of being a jinx, and that Jiang Ruan had been sent to the residence from the age of 5, suffering for no apparent reason for 5 more years. The upper class of the capital were not blind or deaf. Naturally, there were intelligent people who could clearly see the knack of the matter. Regarding Xia Yan's reputation as a gentle and virtuous talented woman, there were other explanations. However, Jiang Ruan's performance that day also showed that her thoughts were not shallow. For a moment, the people of the capital knew that this eldest daughter of the Jiang family could not be underestimated. Jiang Ruan sat in front of the window, lost in thought as she looked at the curtain of rain outside. The hole in the roof had been repaired. After that day, not only was the hole broken, even the silver moon had returned to its original state. Presumably, Jiang Quan felt that he had lost face in front of the noble Furen and had warned Xia Yan about this matter. Lu Zhu placed a pot of fresh roses in front of the courtyard's door and smiled as she walked into the room. Miss, Nobi heard today that Su Kong Dao Zhang was arrested by the patrol office, accused of swindling people, and is a big swindler. Now he has been sent to prison and received a good beating. I heard that one of his legs has been crippled. As she spoke, she spat. Serves him right, who asked him to be black-hearted, to actually fabricate a jinx to slander Mississippi. Jiang Ruan declined to comment. That day, there were many Furens present, so it was inevitable that someone would leak the news of Su Kong Dao Zhang. Su Kong Dao Zhang had been in business for so many years, and presumably, he had not only done business with Xia Yan's family. If the family that had invited him to their house had heard about this, they would certainly be angry and resentful. It would also be natural for them to lodge a complaint with the patrol office. Lian Xiao followed her gaze and looked out of the window. She sighed deeply and said, I wonder when this rain will stop. She suddenly whispered, Miss, food is scarce in the city now. Why don't you sell the food now? You will definitely make a lot of money. Jiang Ruan shook her head. Dewdrop asked, Does Miss wish to wait a few more days? But we don't know when the rain will stop. Now is the perfect time. I'm not buying grain to sell. Jiang Ruan smiled faintly. What's the use of that? Dewdrop was puzzled. Save them. Save them. Dewdrop pondered over these 2 words. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. Young lady, do you want to wait for a few more days and distribute these grains to the victims of the disaster to save their lives? You're only half right, Jiang Ruan smiled and said, I don't want to save their lives. What she wanted to save was the Zhao family. Dewdrop blinked and did not ask further. She thought for a while and suddenly said, Young lady, this servant heard that the reservoir in the north of the capital has begun to overflow. His Majesty has ordered the 8th prince to go and control the flood. He has also specially transferred the young master of Prime Minister Li's Fu, Lian. Dewdrop was a second-rank servant girl. She usually had more opportunities to interact with people in the marketplace. She also knew how to deal with people and had a wide information network. She was the first to know a lot of news. Ah, Lian, Jiang Ruan smiled. Her eyes were astonishingly bright. He's finally here. Of Li Dong's 2 sons, Li Yang was dissolute and elegant, ignorant and incompetent. He was a complete hedonistic son of a rich family. Now that Li Yang had become a cripple, Li Dong would certainly not let the matter rest. However, the reason why he had not made a move against the Jiang family was most likely due to his youngest son. Lian. Lian was a sinister and cunning person. He was also extremely intelligent. In the beginning, Xianli had regarded him highly. If one were to say that Xianli had roped in Li Dong for Li Dong's power, the other 70% was because of Li An's intelligence and wisdom. Lian was a person who was extremely protective of his own people, especially Li Yang. Jiang Ruan smiled slightly. In her previous life, Xianli had told her a secret, a secret about Lian. It was a secret that even Li Yang and Li Dong did not know. And this secret would be her biggest bargaining chip. She said to Dewdrop, "Tell Yan Xiao and Bai Ji to quickly come back and get a set of Yi cards. Young lady wants to play Yi cards." Dewdrop smiled. "This servant will call them back." The capital, Prime Minister's Fu. Li Dong sat on a soft couch in the middle of the hall. A beautiful concubine was massaging his shoulders. Below him, another beautiful concubine was kneeling and gently massaging his legs. The expressions on the two beautiful concubines' faces were somewhat fearful. Li Dong's complexion was ashen, and his face was full of fierceness. Obviously, he was in a bad mood. A manservant came to report, "Second young master has returned." A youth walked in from outside the hall. This youth looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. He was dressed in a sky-blue robe with a yellow tiger-patterned ribbon tied around his waist. His features were handsome, but his skin was pale, as if he had not walked under the sun for a long time. His pair of dark eyes were filled with gloom. Seeing this youth, Li Dong immediately stood up. "Why are you only back now?" "Father." Lian frowned. "How is eldest brother now?" At the mention of Li Yang, a trace of ruthlessness flashed across Li Dong's face. "What else can he do? His life is over. I must make sure that Jiang Su Su is buried with him. This matter cannot be acted blindly without thinking." Lian looked at Li Dong with displeasure. When Li Dong heard his words, he said angrily, "In your letter, you told me not to touch the Jiang family for the time being. What is going on? Your brother is now lying in bed, unable to move. Why can't I go and kill that slut?" "Father, do you really think that eldest brother was harmed by the second Jiang miss?" Lian asked. "What do you mean?" Lian looked at him mockingly. "It can't be any more obvious. Father has already been blinded by anger and is no longer able to think seriously. This matter is nothing more than a provocation by someone with ulterior motives. They want to stir up conflict between the Jiang family and the Li family, and then sit back and reap the benefits." "Is it someone from the fifth prince's side?" Li Dong asked. Currently, in the imperial court, the person with the greatest power was none other than the fifth prince. "No." Lian interrupted him. "The Jiang Fu is but a small place. At that time, the person who plotted against eldest brother must have mixed in with the Jiang Fu. It is very likely that he is a member of the Jiang family. I thought about it and concluded that the second Jiang miss is the least likely to plot against eldest brother. As for the other daughters of the Jiang family, the family of the third Jiang Mrs. concubine and Jiang Quan's official career are involved, so it is impossible for them to destroy their own futures. Only the eldest miss and the fourth miss are left. These two biological mothers are not around, and they are not loved by Jiang Quan. If the people who do not want Jiang Quan to have a good life the most, it is probably these two. Looking at the consequences, the eldest Jiang miss will benefit the most. You are saying that the eldest Jiang miss plotted against your eldest brother and framed the second Jiang miss? Slut. Li Dong's face was extremely distorted. Not necessarily, so I need to make a trip to the Jiang family and see these two with my own eyes to be sure. A strange light flashed in Lian's eyes. Daring to plot against eldest brother, you have guts. If I catch you. The corners of Lian's mouth curled up in an excited smile. His handsome face looked exceptionally strange at this moment. It must be slowly tormented for it to be fun. Jiang Wan was playing leaf cards with Lian Xiao and the others, and Jiang Wan won every round. Lu Zhu pursed her lips and said, "Miss always wins. In any case, you should at least lose a round to make the servants happy. Could it be that you are cheating?" Lian Xiao knocked her on the head. "What nonsense are you talking about? Your skills are inferior, so you say that Miss is cheating. Don't you feel ashamed?" Jiang Wan raised her eyebrows. Didn't you learn leaf cards from a young age? Why do you still need people to let you play? Lu Zhu blushed. Miss is a natural-born expert. As they were chatting and laughing, a little maid suddenly came to the door and said, Eldest Miss, the second young master of the Li family is in the hall. He wants to see you. Lian Qiao and Bai Zhi's expressions changed. They looked at Jiang Yuan nervously. Jiang Yuan declined to comment and said, his movements are really fast. Miss, be careful. Lu Zhu said seriously, the second young master of the Li family is very shrewd. I'm afraid that he has seen through something. It was originally a show for him. Jiang Yuan smiled. Lian Qiao, Bai Zhi, let's go. The three of them walked into the hall. Unexpectedly, Jiang Su and Jiang Dan were also there. At this moment, Jiang Su was talking to the youngster. Lian said, the second miss is such a wonderful person, but she has been possessed by a demon and has to live in seclusion in the family temple. It is really a pity. He looked rather regretful. Jiang Su's pair of beautiful eyes were full of tears. Looking at her, it was obvious that she was forcefully suppressing her grievances. She said, it is all Sun Yang's fate. This second young master of the Li family was completely different from the eldest young master. Li Yang had become like that. Today, when Lian came over and asked to see her, Jiang Su was somewhat afraid. However, when she saw him, Lian was very gentle and did not blame her in the slightest. Instead, when he heard that she was going to the family temple, he even comforted her. A trace of resentment flashed in Jiang Su's heart. This was the marriage that Xia Yan had wanted to arrange for Jiang Yuan. Such a handsome and gentle man, why did Jiang Yuan always have such a good life? Jiang Yuan stood in front of the hall and naturally saw Jiang Su's bashful appearance. She could not help but sneer in her heart. Jiang Su was really naive. Did she really think that the person sitting in front of her was a gentle and noble young master? This young master's thoughts were deeper than the most poisonous snake. Jiang Dan had been sitting at the side with a timid and uneasy expression. When she saw Jiang Yuan, she was pleasantly surprised and said, De Jie. Jiang Su and Lian looked at Jiang Yuan. Jiang Yuan smiled and slowly stepped forward to greet Lian. Greetings, second young master Li. Lian quickly looked at Jiang Yuan and smiled. Eldest young Miss Jiang. Jiang Yuan sat down beside Jiang Dan and looked at Lian. Second young master, what's the matter? She was too lazy to talk nonsense and asked Lian directly. A trace of light flashed in Lian's eyes. He smiled and said, it's nothing much. It's just that something happened to my elder brother at your residence. Oh, how is eldest young master now? Her tone was worried, but her gaze was calm. Not very good. Lian hung his head and sighed. That day at your residence, he was seriously injured. How unfortunate. Jiang Yuan said. Her flat and indifferent tone, for some reason, sounded very ear-piercing to Li An's ears. It was as if there was a hint of a smile. What does eldest miss think of this matter? Lian raised his voice. It was merely a misunderstanding. Jiang Yuan smiled and said, second younger sister is still young and insensible, but Wan Yang thinks that your esteemed older brother is not entirely without fault. She had cleanly stripped herself of all blame, and spoke in a light and understated manner. Jiang Su, who was listening at the side, was furious. You. She swallowed her words. Just now, in the hall, she had revealed a lot of information to Lian openly and covertly, turning the spearhead towards Jiang Yuan. Just a misunderstanding. Lian smiled. I think that someone deliberately arranged it. Does eldest miss think that it's a misunderstanding? Wan Yang naturally thinks that it's a misunderstanding. Jiang Yuan smiled slightly. If eldest young master has other ideas, you can naturally go to the capital governor to ask for an explanation. If it's really not enough, we can let the prime minister reprimand my father during the court session. His Majesty has the heart to seek justice for your elder brother and will punish my father. Although Wan Yang is a member of the Jiang family, she only obeys the law. However, Wan Yang must remind eldest young master that your elder brother also has to bear half of the responsibility. If the Jiang family is really investigated, the Li family will not be able to escape unscathed. Lian stared fixedly at Jiang Ruan's eyes. She knew that if this matter was reported to the capital governor, the whole capital would know that Li Yang had been castrated. Now that the news was completely sealed, if it really got out, based on Li Yang's temperament, he would probably have no face left. Moreover, if that was really the case, the Prime Minister's foot would probably have to be reshuffled. If even the capital governor could not say it, then it was even more impossible to complain to the emperor. Jiang Wan seemed generous, but in reality, every road she said was a dead end. His interest was suddenly aroused, and he smiled. Then, how does Miss Jiang think this matter should be resolved? That depends on what the Prime Minister thinks. Jiang Wan smiled slightly. However, once this matter comes out, the future of the Prime Minister's foot will depend on second young master. Her tone was flat, but the look in her eyes was profound. Lian was startled for a moment, then he suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. Interesting, this is really too interesting. Eldest Miss is so intelligent, it's really not difficult to be tempted. Jiang Su's body stiffened, and a trace of resentment flashed in her eyes. She only heard Jiang Wan say indifferently, eldest young Master Li was also very tempted by second sister. Lian changed the topic. I heard that eldest Mrs. birth mother is the young lady of General Zhao's fu. Why is there a break in contact now? Jiang Wan did not bat an eyelid. When a person is dead, everything is dust, including old friends. That won't do, Lian seemed to deliberately tease her. In a few days, I will follow 8th Prince to control the flood. This time, His Majesty is very concerned about the capital's flood. I heard that eldest Mrs. cousin, Zhao Yi Darren, is the capital's garrison. If you seize this opportunity, I'm afraid that you will be able to make a great contribution. Jiang Ruan's fingers in her sleeves slightly clenched, but her face did not waver in the slightest. She said, that has nothing to do with Wan Yang. General Zhao has been in the army for half his life, and has received countless rewards. Now, it seems that there are people in the capital who are beginning to have no food to fill their stomachs. It is really worrying. Zhao Darren's heart is the people of the world. If he can allocate a portion of the food to the disaster victims, the people will be deeply grateful to him. Young master, be careful with your words. Jiang Wan said indifferently. She knew that Lian was deliberately provoking her. Even if there were mountains of gold and silver in General Zhao's fu, there were so many disaster victims in the capital now, and there would still be refugees coming in the future. There would be no surplus food, and if they were to use gold and silver to buy it at a high price, even the mountains of gold and silver would be emptied. Lian laughed heartily. I have benefited a lot from this conversation with eldest Mississippi. Now that it is getting late, I will return first. When we meet again in the future, I hope that eldest Miss will still be able to talk cheerfully and wittily like today. Although there was a smile on his handsome face, there was a boundless gloominess in his deep eyes, as if they had been dipped in snake venom. Jiang Wan nodded. Definitely. Lian did not speak and turned to leave. As soon as he turned his head, the smile on his face completely faded, and his expression became frighteningly gloomy. When he left the Jiang Fu, the manservant beside him cautiously asked, Young master, was it done by eldest Miss Jiang? It was her. Lian flipped over and mounted the horse. That girl, who was still wet behind the ears, had a pair of eyes that could not see through her emotions. In the face of his doubt, she had accepted it, and even provoked him. He cracked his whip, and the horse let out a long neigh. In the blink of an eye, it had galloped away. Naturally, there was more than one horse on the streets of the capital. As Lian galloped the horse, he brushed past another horse. That horse was a rare, fine colt. Its glossy jet-black fur was magnificent and beautiful, and on it sat a person wearing a bamboo hat and a cloak. Stopping at a restaurant in the city, he handed the horse over to the waiter and went upstairs. When he reached the second floor, a maidservant led him to a private room. He pushed aside the beaded curtain and walked in. When the people in the room saw him, the eyes of the person sitting at the side lit up. Second older brother. Guan Liang Han was the great general of the Great Jin dynasty. He was brave and skillful in battle, and his reputation as the god of war resounded throughout the land. This time, he had returned to the capital without following the main army, and had first slipped back on his own. He had always had an unrestrained temperament, and even if the emperor knew about it, he would turn a blind eye. He looked at the youth who had called him second older brother. It was Imo Kong. Imo Tsong said, "Second older brother, where are the fox and wolf cubs from the northwest that you said you would bring back for me?" He had long wanted to secretly raise such a small fox and wolf cub in the manor. "In a few days, when the troops return, I will send it to you." Guan Liang Han was in his early 30s. He was tall and handsome, but his face was covered with a full beard. At first glance, he looked like a fiend. "I see that the smell of cosmetics in the capital has made you look like a woman. Another day, I will let you follow older brother to the desert to train. You are as thin as a monkey." Mo Tsong was unconvinced. "Second older brother, what's so good about that? Look at how you only know how to fight all day long. You've grown so big for nothing. Besides, what's wrong with being thin? Third older brother is also thin, but isn't he still pretty good? Can you compare to your third older brother?" Guan Liang Han made a gesture as if he was going to whip him. "Your third older brother can crush you to death with one finger." Xiao Xiao, who had been sitting silently to the side, finally raised his head. "Second older brother. I say, third older brother, do you usually spoil this kid like this? After not seeing him for a year, he has become more and more improper," Guan Liang Han said. When they were young, they had come from the same sect. There were 8 brothers in total. "I'm afraid that even second young Master Jiang has fallen into her trap." Mo Tsong was clever and could vaguely guess a little about Jiang Chao's affairs. Hearing Mo Tsong's words, Guan Liang Han frowned. "So you're saying that she is a vicious and malicious woman? What kind of person she is not important." Xiao Xiao said indifferently, "You really don't have a person named Jiang Xing under you?" Seeing him like this, Guan Liang Han put away the indecent expression on his face and said, "I don't have a person named Jiang Xing, but I know of a person named Xiao Xing." "Xiao Xing?" Xiao Xiao raised his eyebrows. "That's him." Jiang Xing had originally hated the Jiang family. If he had entered the army, it was highly likely that he had changed his mother's surname. "Where is he now?" Xiao Xiao asked. "I went to the capital first." "He followed the army," Guan Liang Han said. "He is the deputy general under my command." "You said that he is the eldest young master of the Jiang family?" "Deputy general." Mo Tsong looked at Xiao Xiao. "Third elder brother, your brother-in-law is quite good." Guan Liang Han and Xiao Xiao both regarded Mo Tsong as heir. Guan Liang Han said, "This Xiao Xing cannot be underestimated. At first, he started out as a small soldier who cooked. He did an outstanding job and was continuously promoted. When he first entered the army, he was as skinny as old 7. He looked like a scholar who could be blown away by a gust of wind. He kept asking to go to the battlefield, but I did not agree. Later, when I saw that he had trained well, I brought him to fight. This person is not afraid of death. At first, he did not dare to kill people. Later on, he killed ruthlessly, and no longer had the sour air of a scholar. I saw that he was a man, and his fighting skills were getting better and better. After achieving several military merits, he was promoted to deputy general. This time, he was the one who took the initiative to come back to the capital with me. Xiao Xiao looked at him. Guan Lianghan said, the eldest miss of the Jiang family that you speak of, if Xiao Xing is really Jiang Xing, then eldest Miss Jiang is his younger sister. I have heard of Xiao Xing's younger sister. When I first asked him why he was not afraid of death in battle, he said that he had to achieve military merits and be promoted in order to have the status to protect his younger sister. He paused and looked at Mo Kong. However, Xiao Xing told me about his younger sister. He said that she was simple and pleasant, gentle, and that she was bullied everywhere. Why did you say that she was a vicious woman? Mo Tsong spat out a mouthful of water. His expression was strange. Gentle and gentle. Simple and pleasant. Bullied everywhere. He grabbed Xiao Xiao's arm. Third elder brother, I think you must have recognized the wrong person. That Xiao Xing is definitely not the same person as Jiang Xing. No matter how I look at eldest Miss Jiang, she does not look like someone who would be bullied. Just don't be bullied by her. Xiao Xiao pulled his hand away. What kind of person do you think Xiao Xing is? Seeing that Xiao Xiao's expression did not seem to be joking, Guan Lianghan sternly said, just as you said, if he really is Jiang Quan's son, then he is also a different person from Jiang Quan. Regardless of whether he was a scholar before or a deputy general now, he is still considered a man. Is there anything special about him? Xiao Xiao's clear and cold eyes were heavy with emotion. For example, prophecy. Prophecy? Guan Lianghan was stunned. Third elder brother, are you sick? What prophecy? If prophecy could be made, then we would win every battle. Then what would we need a general like me for? Hearing Xiao Xiao's words, Mo Tsong's expression changed. Third elder brother, have you discovered something? It's nothing. Xiao Xiao calmly said, His Majesty had eighth brother control the flood, and also sent Lian. What did he come back for? Mo Tsong asked. He was very hostile towards Lian Li and was extremely intelligent, but he did not use the right path. Which disciple of the noble family that he had the slightest friendship with had not been tricked by him when they were young? Mo Tsong was no exception. And because Mo Tsong was also relatively intelligent, Lian had often tripped him up when he was young. And as Lian grew older, his skill at tricking people in the dark became more and more refined, his methods more and more vicious. What does His Majesty mean? Is he optimistic about eighth brother? Guan Lianghan asked. To outsiders, such words were tantamount to execution for discussing the affairs of the imperial family. But Guan Lianghan did not care in the slightest. If Xian Li had performed a meritorious service in controlling the flood this time, his prestige in the court would increase, and the people would support him even more. On the contrary, the crown prince's position was becoming more and more precarious. The thoughts of the person on the imperial throne in the nine-layered palace had always been something that the subjects could not guess. In recent years, it had become even more unfathomable. True and false, false and true. Perhaps even Xian Li himself did not know the emperor's intentions. If he really thought highly of Xian Li, the crown prince would not have lived until now, Xian Li said coldly. Third elder brother, then what do we do now? Wait. Xiao Xiao played with the dagger in his hand and calmly said, Li An's sudden return to the capital was not a coincidence. I want to see what the Li family wants. Chapter 78. 20 days passed in a row, and the rain in the capital did not stop. The pitter-patter of rain didn't seem like much, but regardless of whether it was day or night, large numbers of dead animals began to appear in the capital, needless to say, the Zhuang family. Not only the capital, but the entire Great Jin dynasty was shrouded in the shadow of the flood. A few days ago, the water level of the moat rose and broke the dam. Many people who lived near the moat drowned. The government's disaster relief efforts were like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, so controlling the flood became a top priority. The imperial court had allocated a large sum of money to various places for disaster relief. It looked like a large sum of money, but when it was passed down layer by layer, the officials who received the money had to be scraped with oil as usual. When it reached the hands of the victims, it was nothing more than a few bones. As a result, the number of disaster victims in various places increased. Many of their houses were washed away by the flood, and they became homeless refugees. The refugees all chose to go to Shangjing. Firstly, Shangjing's terrain was higher, so it was less affected by the disaster compared to other places. Secondly, it was under the emperor's jurisdiction after all. They thought that they might be able to eat a mouthful of hot rice from the Shangguan residence. But the rain kept accumulating, and the refugees kept surging up. The government could not afford to pay the huge amount of money and food, so they stopped providing food 3 days ago. As a result, the starving refugees began to rob the rich and powerful. The rich and powerful naturally had personal guards, and the conflicts between the refugees and the high-ranking officials and nobles in the capital deepened day by day. A few days ago, it was just individual robberies. These days, they had begun to rob houses in groups of 3 or 5. The doors of the rich and powerful were tightly shut, not daring to go out. For a moment, the people of the capital were in a state of panic, hoping that the flood would pass as soon as possible. The Jiangfu's rations were still enough to last them for a period of time, so no one was aware of the crisis. If there was anything different, it was that the second young master of Prime Minister Li's Fu, Lian, would visit the Jiangfu every few days. He did not do anything, but only talked to Jiang Quan. His attitude was also considered polite. How could Jiang Quan not know what Li Dong was thinking? He only saw that Lian did not look like he wanted to become enemies with him, so Lian openly and covertly indicated that he wanted to be on good terms. Lian Xiao walked in with a flower basket in her hands, and said disdainfully, "That second young master Li has come again today. Those who don't know would think that the Jiangfu is his home. It looks like he doesn't care about young Master Li's injury and wants to shake hands and make up." Jiang Wan was lying on the couch reading a book. When she heard these words, her gaze slightly moved. It was impossible for the Li family to shake hands and make peace with the Jiangfu. Li Yang had become a cripple, and Li Dong and Lian were not magnanimous people. Based on Li An's current performance, he no longer intended to view Jiang Quan and Jiang Su as enemies. Bai Ji frowned. "When I passed by the courtyard this morning, this servant met 15 Yang again. 15 Yang said that Leo had proposed to send Mrs. Gung Card over, hoping to make friends with the Li family. That second young Master Li didn't agree, but he didn't obviously refuse either." "Miss, what should we do?" "Don't worry about it." Jiang Wan smiled faintly. "Lian, this person's thoughts are profound. If he really wanted me to enter the Li family, he would certainly wait until I was utterly defeated and unable to resist before slowly torturing me. It would definitely not be so simple. Unfortunately, this time, Lian would no longer wait until that time." Bai Ji and Lian Qiao were somewhat worried, but when they saw that Jiang Wan did not seem to mind, they swallowed the words in their mouths. Just as they were speaking, they saw Lu Zhu hurriedly walk in from outside, unable to conceal the joy on her face. Just as she walked in, she closed the door, walked to the window, and looked around to see that there was no one around before closing the window. She walked in front of Jiang Wan, lowered her voice, and said with a smile, "Miss, young Master Gu's personal servant has sent a message saying that there might be news of eldest young master, but General Guan has spurred his horse back at full speed. The army is still on the way, and it will take another 10 days for them to return." She said, "Young Master Gu said that he can't be sure now, but there is an 80 to 90% chance that the person is eldest young master." Lu Zhu laughed. "Eldest young master is now the deputy general." Lu Zhu and Bai Ji were stunned. Jiang Wan stood up and grabbed Lu Zhu's hand. "Is that true?" Lu Zhu looked at her excited appearance and smiled. "Absolutely true." Bai Ji and Lian Xiao both laughed and said, "Now the bitterness is over, and the sweetness is coming. When eldest young master returns to the Fu, he will definitely protect Miss well." Jiang Wan sat back on the soft couch, and her eyes began to heat up. Jiang Xing was still alive. Her only big brother was still alive. In this world, she was not a person who had no one to rely on. In this life, it was still not too late. She must help Jiang Xing rewrite the ending of his violent death. With this thought, the worries and melancholy from the past few days were swept away, replaced by a strong fighting spirit. In this life, Jiang Xing was alive and healthy. The two of them, brother and sister, must make the enemy of their previous life die a tragic death, and pay blood for blood. Jiang Wan suddenly stood up again, and her pair of beautiful eyes were charming and moving. "Since this is the case, there are some things that should be prepared," she said. "Lu Zhu, go outside and hire a few people, use the foreign refugees. Ensure that they eat and drink as a reward, and buy a big pot." "Miss, what is this for?" Lian Xiao asked hesitantly. "I want to give out porridge," Jiang Wan said lightly. The plan that she had been patiently waiting for a long time could finally be put to use at this time. There were more and more refugees in the capital, and the influx of a large number of refugees caused the capital to be shrouded in a sense of unease. On the streets, the common people walked hurriedly, each of their faces ashen. Most of them dragged their hungry bodies, hoping to get a job from a rich family as a reward to eat. Not to mention the refugees, the strong and healthy refugees began to openly rob on the streets. The city guards were busy, but the patrol office was unwilling to arrest these people and send them to prison. Food in prison also required food. But even so, the emperor did not expel the refugees. Now, the great Jin dynasty was calm on the surface, but the turmoil in the court was only understood by those involved. At this time, nothing major could happen. But in such a situation, the emperor was not in a good mood, and the officials trembled with fear when they went to court every day. There were honest and upright ministers who were worried about the common people, and proposed to distribute grain for disaster relief, but all they received was an increasingly unkind expression from the emperor. The national treasury was empty. The disaster relief funds that had been distributed to various places in the past few days had already exhausted the silver in the national treasury. This year, the crops had been destroyed, and the grain tax paid was also an empty account. In such a time of panic, there were people in the city who set up sheds and began to distribute grain. At this critical juncture, the imperial court was powerless and had long since stopped casting curses. The common people and refugees were naturally happy. The imperial court still cared about the common people, and they all rushed to spread the news. The porridge distribution shed was simple. On one side, there were people casting curses, while on the other, there were people setting up huge pots to cook porridge, ensuring an uninterrupted supply. The queue was so long that it almost filled the 2 streets in the city. There were 8 people in total guarding the pots. The 8 people were all burly middle-aged men, each of them tall and sturdy, with fierce expressions on their faces. Some of them had been tempted to fish in troubled waters, but now they gave up on that idea. The person distributing the porridge was a benevolent-looking woman. She said in a loud voice, "There are strange phenomena in the sky, and floods are wreaking havoc. Everyone here has a hard life. Our general takes pity on the common people, and specially exchanged half of our family's assets to distribute to everyone. From today onwards, we will distribute porridge here every morning. Everyone can receive a bowl, but only one bowl. The ways of the world are not easy." The general said that if half of the family's assets are used up, the remaining half will be used to help the common people. "Everyone, please understand that the heavens care for Great Jin, and His Majesty is magnanimous and wise. I believe that we will definitely survive this disaster." Her words were very encouraging, and in an instant, it gave hope to the people. Someone asked, "May I ask, madam, who is the general in this Fu?" How can a mere servant woman dare to address herself as madam? The woman smiled. This Fu belongs to the Zhao family of the great general who supports the state. General Zhao. Some people in the crowd started discussing. Zhao Guang had a good reputation among the common people, and the crowd started shouting, many thanks to General Zhao for his benevolence. General Zhao is indeed a hero. If he wants us to work like an ox or a horse, we will agree. Many people exclaimed in admiration. Outside the crowd, there was a carriage parked. Lu Zhu lifted a corner of the carriage's curtain and peeked inside. She excitedly said in a small voice, "Miss, this is great." Jiang Wan smiled slightly. "The person you found is very good." Just by listening from the outside, she felt that the servant woman's words were very clever. Lu Zhu blushed and smiled. That woman was originally an etiquette instructor for the young miss of a noble family in Sangzhou. She is literate and speaks clearly. However, that family died in the flood, and she was the only one left, so she came to the capital. This servant thinks that her speech is appropriate. Since she is going to pretend to be someone from the general's fu, she naturally has to look presentable. This appearance is already very good. Jiang Wan smiled. Not far from the carriage, there was another person standing. He was tall and straight, and his black clothes could also create a scene that was like an orchid or a jade tree. At this moment, he faintly looked at the crowd queuing up to receive the porridge, and a trace of deep thought flashed through his beautiful eyes. After a moment, he said to the imperial bodyguard beside him, "Investigate that woman." Not someone from the general's fu. Embroidered clothes stared blankly. Could it be? Who would do a good deed and leave someone else's name? Moreover, food was currently scarce in the city. A bowl of porridge a day was not considered much in the past, but now, it was not an ordinary act. Xiao Xiao did not speak, but Jiang Ruan's indifferent smile appeared in front of his eyes. More than a month ago, she had bought all the surplus grain in the capital just for this day. His intuition told him that this matter could not be separated from Jiang Ruan's involvement, but more than a month ago, it had only rained for a few days. How could she have known that there would be a flood? In the general's fu, Zhao Guang sat in the study. Although he was already 60 years old, he still appeared hale and hearty. His facial features were upright and awe-inspiring. With one look, one could tell that he was a general who had experienced many battles. His 3 sons all stood in front of Zhao Guang, their expressions extremely solemn. Jun Gongyi went to court yesterday and leaked some news to me, Zhao Guang said. His 8th Highness is preparing to deal with the Zhao family. The 3rd young master of the Zhao family, Zhao Yuanfeng, had a fiery temper. He said, "Father, we are not afraid of him. A straight body does not fear a crooked shadow. If there is anything, just bring it on. The Zhao family is not something that a mere prince can shake." "Shut up." Zhao Guang angrily said. "Jun Gongyi has said that this matter is troublesome. Get lost, don't cause trouble for your father." 3rd brother, the 2nd young master, Zhao Yuanping, was fair and handsome. He had the bearing of a scholarly general. He said, "You don't know what kind of person Xianli is." A few years ago, many people in the court who were not on his side fell into his hands. He will not use normal methods that are just and honorable. The eldest young master, Zhao Yuanjia, sighed. 2nd brother is right. However, why would the 8th prince suddenly want to deal with the Zhao family? The 5th prince has not been purged yet. We are supporting His Highness the Crown Prince. Why would he act rashly? I'm afraid he is preparing to go to war. Zhao Guang's gaze was heavy. His Majesty has protected the Crown Prince for so many years. Based on the 8th prince's intelligence, I'm afraid he has long seen through it. He wants to drag the Zhao family into this. Then what should we do? Zhao Yuanfeng was unwilling to give up. Let him scheme like this. Jun Gongyi would rather die than reveal even the slightest bit of information. Zhao Guang sighed. I'm afraid it is not a small matter. He changed the topic. Now that there are more and more refugees in the capital, the floods will not stop anytime soon. His Majesty has also sent the 8th prince and the Li family to manage the reservoir. I just feel that it is not that simple. Zhao Guang had won countless battles when he was young. He had a natural sensitivity to danger. It was the instinct of a soldier. Zhao Yuanjia muttered, has said the same thing these few days. The number of guards in the city has more than doubled. I'm afraid the capital is going to change. Just as he was speaking, a manservant suddenly rushed in from outside and said, "Master, something has happened." Zhao Guang frowned. "What is it?" The servant was quick-witted. In 2 or 3 sentences, he explained the situation clearly. Someone is giving out porridge in the city. 1 bowl a day, but they are doing it under the general's banner. What? Zhao Guang stood up from his seat. Is this true? Zhao Yuanfeng said, "It can't be. Father, this is the 8th prince's idea. Is there something wrong with his brain?" Zhao Guang frowned. "Do you know that person?" The servant shook his head. "The people in the residence have gone to take a look. I don't know anyone. But they did nothing else. They are just giving out porridge. Father, should I go take a look?" Zhao Yuanjia asked softly. "No." Zhao Guang waved his hand. "This matter is strange. Let's wait a few more days." What was certain was that the person giving out porridge was definitely not from the general's household. What did they want to do under the general's banner? Was it Xian Li's men or someone else? If it was Xian Li, did he have a backup plan? If it was someone else, who could afford to give out so much food? What was their background and what did they want to do? No matter what, they could not act rashly. The news of General Zhao's distribution of food and porridge spread like the wind throughout the capital that day. In a short while, the streets and alleys were full of talk. The 8th prince's residence naturally received the news as well. Xian Li smashed the porcelain cup in his hand. Although he still had a warm smile on his face, upon closer inspection, one could see that the muscles at the corners of his mouth were twitching. He was obviously very angry. "Zhao Guang," he said coldly. An advisor asked, "Your Highness, how did the news get out? Could there be a traitor in the residence?" Xian Li laughed coldly. What other reason could there be? Zhao Guang actually had this trick up his sleeve. What an eye-opener. He had originally wanted to use this opportunity to suggest that Zhao Guang give out food for disaster relief. Then, he would have his men support him. Now that the national treasury was in a deficit, the emperor was anxious and would naturally agree. With the Zhao family weakened, it would be much easier to deal with them in the future. If he proposed this method, he would be able to win the emperor's favor, and the voices of the people in court would also rise. Now that Zhao Guang had taken the initiative to give out porridge, although it seemed that the Zhao family's financial resources would still be weakened, the significance to him was vastly different. Zhao Guang's initiative to give out porridge not only earned the emperor's praise, but also increased his prestige among the commoners. On the surface, it looked like the Zhao family's power had been weakened, but in reality, it had not been weakened at all. In fact, it had increased significantly. And if he didn't have the chance to intervene in this matter, it would be a waste of such a great opportunity. Why would Zhao Guang take the initiative to provide disaster relief? The advisor said, he has always had a bad temper. The Zhao family's accumulated wealth over several generations has been squandered just like that. How could he be so heartless? To donate all the money one had accumulated over several generations required a great deal of courage. He is very courageous, Xian Li said, but all the more reason to keep him alive. To even think of such a method of advancing by retreating, the Zhao family's several generations of officials were not so easily toppled. He had never thought that someone else would use Zhao Guang's name to give out porridge. After all, food was now more expensive than silver. No one would be willing to spend such a large sum of money on someone else's wedding dress. Your Highness, the traitor in the residence. The advisor asked hesitantly. To be able to pass information to the Zhao family right under my nose, they naturally won't be found out so easily. Kill them all and replace them with another batch, he said. Your Highness, the advisor was shocked. These are all carefully selected people. Training each one of them required a great deal of time and money. Killing them all just like that was not worth it. Xianli was unmoved. There was a cruel smile on his face. I would rather kill 1,000 wrongly than let one go. Kill them. The news that the general-in-chief who supports the nation, Zhao Guang, had spent all of his family's wealth to help the people quickly spread to the imperial court. The emperor was naturally very pleased. Zhao Guang's actions gave the emperor an excuse to ask other officials to help. Thus, all the officials in the imperial court contributed a sum of silver to fill the empty treasury. Zhao Guang received a verbal reward and gained a good reputation among the people. It seemed that he did not lose out. As promised, the people who gave out porridge came to the city early in the morning to give out porridge to the people. With a stable supply of food, the number of robbers in the capital decreased significantly. For a time, the city was much more peaceful. Zhao Guang did not deny that he gave out porridge, nor did he personally go to the places where the porridge was given. He lived peacefully. On this day, the commander of the city garrison, Zhao Yi, was leading his troops on horseback through the streets of the capital. These days, the peace of the refugees made his daily tasks much easier. But at this moment, he saw a soldier galloping over on horseback. He looked very anxious and said, "Sir, a couple of refugees from Chongxian village in the east of the city are fighting with the commoners. They are trying to steal food." Zhao Yi frowned. As the eldest grandson of the Zhao family, he had inherited Zhao Yuanjia's upright and plain-spoken character. He hated these robbers the most. He said angrily, "Now that there are people giving out porridge every day, they are still so arrogant. This is too much." He then turned to the soldier behind him and said, "Follow me to take a look." "Sir." The soldier said, "There are also refugees fighting with the commoners at Wang Mountain in the west of the city. There are many more people there than at the east. Let another group of brothers go to Wang Mountain in the west." Zhao Yi thought for a moment and said, "Since there are not many people at the east of the city, I will take 2 people. Since they are all unarmed refugees, they are only fighting for food. Don't kill them." He then turned to the 2 soldiers behind him and said, "You 2 come with me." After the soldier who passed the message saw Zhao Yi leave, he turned to the soldiers and said, "Follow me." The 2 groups of people went their separate ways. Zhao Yi, however, only brought 2 people. His martial arts were outstanding. Usually, he did not need so many people to suppress the refugees. Therefore, he did not put this matter in his eyes. The horse beneath him was galloping very fast, but in the distance, a carriage rushed out from the side. Zhao Yi was startled and quickly stopped the horse. The carriage also seemed to be startled, the horse let out a long neigh and with great difficulty came to a stop. Zhao Yi was worried. He dismounted and said, "The person inside, I wonder if she is injured." The driver was obviously hired at the last minute. He also looked inside, not knowing what to do. A moment later, the curtain of the carriage was lifted. A pretty girl in emerald green clothes jumped out. The girl jumped out of the carriage and said to Zhao Yi, "You are so rude. If my family's miss is injured in the slightest, I will definitely make you pay." Zhao Yi was an upright and kind-hearted person. At this moment, he said guiltily, "It is all my fault. However, I have important matters to attend to. If Miss does not mind, please report your residence's name. In a few days, I will come and apologize." The servant girl in emerald green clothes angrily pouted, "Who wants you to come and apologize? With your attire, you must be a city guard. Are you going to work? The capital is currently peaceful. Could it be that someone is causing trouble? Zhao Yi cupped his hands in greeting. There are refugees at Chongxian Manor in the east of the city. This matter is urgent. I will have to trouble Miss to let us pass. When I have dealt with this matter, I will definitely apologize. Chongxian Manor. A gentle voice came from the carriage. Immediately after, the curtain was lifted, revealing a bright and moving face. Jiang Wan smiled slightly. Darren, are you mistaken? Why would someone rob Chongxian Manor? Zhao Yi was somewhat absent-minded as he looked at that face. Their Zhao family had been practicing martial arts for 3 generations. He had heard that they used to have an aunt. However, she had lost contact with the Zhao family a long time ago. Usually, he came into contact with the boorish miss of the Wu family. When had he ever met such a bright and gentle young lady? Although his uncles all said that the young ladies of the scholarly families only knew how to embroider, they were actually very cunning. However, when he looked at this beautiful young lady in front of him, he actually blushed slightly. The soldier behind him coughed lightly. Zhao Yi abruptly returned to his senses and scratched his head in embarrassment. This miss, why do you say so? Jiang Wan took in his expression. This older cousin of the Zhao family was indeed an interesting person. She smiled and said, a few days ago, I passed by Chongxian Manor. It is close to the mountainside and has been severely affected by the rain. The owner of Chongxian Manor has long moved his entire family away. Many refugees have moved there. There are no commoners living there. How could there be a robbery? Zhao Yi was stunned and his expression became solemn. Is what Miss said true? Why would I lie to you? Jiang Wan smiled lightly. Moreover, Zhao Yi stared at her closely. Jiang Wan said, moreover, when I went there a few days ago, the group of refugees all had knives and rods. They looked very fierce and fiendish. Darren, are you really planning to only bring these 2 people? I'm afraid that before we reach the manor, we will be killed by the refugees there. The 2 soldiers behind Zhao Yi were startled and hesitantly said, Darren. Zhao Yi had sat in the position of city guard. Naturally, he was not an ignorant child who did not know anything. The meaning behind Jiang Ruan's words made him immediately suspect that today's incident was a premeditated conspiracy. Thinking of this, he unconsciously frowned. Jiang Wan smiled slightly. Let me give Darren an idea. There are so many refugees in the east of the city. Darren, with only 2 people under you, it will certainly not be enough. Why don't you borrow some people from the capital governor to go to the east of the city? If the capital governor knew about this matter, he would not just stand by and watch. Zhao Yi's mind moved. Indeed, he only had 2 people. Advancing rashly was indeed not the best strategy. However, if they did not go to Chongxian Manor, they would not be able to clarify today's incident and capture the person behind the scenes. The capital governor was also in charge of maintaining order in the capital, so it was not difficult to borrow some people. Thinking of this, he looked deeply at Jiang Ruan. This young girl's appearance was inexplicable. It was as if she had specifically waited for him to say this to her. It seemed as if she had said it unintentionally, but... Zhao Yi pondered, did she really not know anything? No matter what, if what Jiang Wan said was true, she had saved his life. Zhao Yi cupped his hands. Many thanks to Miss for telling me. Darren is too polite. Jiang Wan smiled lightly and lowered the curtain of the carriage. Lu Zhu returned to the carriage. Jiang Ruan's voice came from the carriage. Let me warn Darren again. The refugees in the east of the city are fierce and fiendish. They are not ordinary bandits. Darren, borrow people from the capital governor, the more the better. Otherwise, the entire army will be wiped out. Finished speaking, the carriage rumbled as it moved forward. Zhao Yi watched as the carriage gradually disappeared from his field of vision. He mounted the horse and shouted, to the capital governor's office. In the carriage, Jiang Wan was leaning against the cushion in a daze. She had used the excuse of finding Lin Zixiang to go to the Lin Fu to save Zhao Yi's life. In her previous life, Zhao Yi had been hacked to death in a frenzy while suppressing the refugees at Chong Xian village. At that time, Jiang Wan had always been puzzled as to why the unarmed refugees would suddenly become so savage. No matter how weak Zhao Yi's skills were, he should not have met such a tragic end. Thus, when the refugees had entered the capital, she had sent Lu Zhu to find people to keep an eye on the movements at Chong Xian village. Yesterday, someone had reported that a group of people had suddenly arrived at Chong Xian village. They were all armed and dressed as refugees. How could ordinary refugees carry so many weapons? Moreover, they were a group of people. Presumably, someone had disguised themselves as refugees and was preparing to surround and kill Zhao Yi today. This person's calculations were also very precise. He had pushed all the blame onto the refugees. With Zhao Yi's death, the Zhao family's eldest legitimate grandson would be gone. The Zhao family had suffered such a heavy blow, and their strength would certainly be greatly weakened. Moreover, that person had cooperated and taken the Zhao family's money. It was very likely that the Zhao family would not be able to stand up again. Who could this person be? The Jiang family? The Xia family? The Li family? Jiang Ruan's gaze was deep. She was afraid that Xian Li could not escape this matter. The weakening of the Zhao family was what he was most happy to see. However, in this life, she had provided the Zhao family's food for disaster relief. Zhao Yi had also not died. The Zhao family was standing well among the nobles in the capital. Now that Xian Li knew of this matter, what kind of attitude would he have? Zhao Yi had captured that group of people. No matter what, he knew that there was a spy in the garrison army. When he returned and told the Zhao family would not be easily deceived. At the same time that he had thought things through, he would also begin to be vigilant. If Xian Li wanted to make another move, it would not be so easy. Most importantly, Jiang Wan sighed softly. What had happened in the past had always been a hurdle for her and Zhao Guang. She had saved the Zhao family and Zhao Yi. She didn't know if she could use this as a reward to enter the General Fu. No matter what, for Jiang Xing, she had to give it a try. Chapter 79. The rain grew heavier and heavier. The people who lived close to the hillside were affected, and a large amount of mud poured down. The Buchang Reservoir was the largest reservoir in the capital. The irrigation of the farmland in the capital relied on this reservoir. However, the storm was fierce and the water in the reservoir overflowed, so there was a risk of conflict. Xian Li led his men to control the flood and temporarily suppressed the rising tide. In the Zhuang Yuan's mansion, the young Zhuang Yuan was standing in front of the window, looking at the rain with a frown. Lu Furen walked in with a bowl of brown sugar and ginger soup. She placed the bowl on the table. Seeing Lu Min like this, she sighed and said, "What kind of sin did you commit? You harmed so many people for no reason." They were originally commoners, so they could empathize with the sufferings of the common people. If Lu Min had not entered the court as an official, they would probably be destitute like the common people, suffering from hunger and cold. Lu Min patted Madame Lu's shoulder and comforted her, "Mother, don't worry. Everything will pass." If it wasn't for General Zhao distributing food for the disaster relief, who knows how many more people would have starved to death. Lu Furen sighed. General Zhao is a good official. In the imperial court, you should get closer to him. Lu Min nodded. However, if the rain continued to pour, there would come a day when Zhao Guang would run out of money. This matter could only solve the problem at hand, but was not a long-term solution. He remembered that a few days ago, the 8th prince had enthusiastically asked him about his views on the flood. It seemed that the 8th prince wanted to help contain the flood. But how could a person who truly cared about the world consider everything like him? Lu Min sighed almost imperceptibly. The waters of the imperial court were not shallow. Only those who were involved in it would understand how difficult it was to act in a proper manner. For more than 10 days, the distribution of porridge never stopped. The capital gradually calmed down. If there was any new news, it would be that the city guards had caught a group of bandits disguised as refugees in Chongxin village in the east of the city. That day, the city guards did not have enough men, so the garrison commander borrowed a group of men from the capital magistrate. When they arrived at Chongxian village, a fierce battle ensued. With great difficulty, they subdued the bandits and threw them into prison. But in one night, all the bandits committed suicide to escape punishment. The citizens of the capital clapped their hands in joy, but at the same time, they were worried. The city was not peaceful, and their lives in the future would be even more difficult. On the other hand, the capital's garrison troops felt proud and elated because of this matter. In the middle of the Ruanju, Jiang Wan was leaning against the couch and embroidering. In the past, because of Zhang Lan's family's coercion, she had embroidered day and night, and her hands had developed dead calluses. Now that she had been reborn, she hated the fact that her previous life and death had left her with mutilated limbs riddled with scars. In this life, she was unwilling to leave even a single scar on her body. Thus, when she returned to the Jiangfu, she tossed aside her embroidery. These days, the dead calluses on her hands had all fallen off, and they became white and tender again. They looked like the hands of a noble family's young lady. Only then did she start to tidy up these things again. Lu Zhu walked in from outside, and after looking around to make sure that there was no one around, she approached Jiang Wan and quietly said, "Miss, someone from the General Fu has arrived and wants to see the person who gave the kanji." Jiang Wan smiled slightly. "Is it someone from the General Fu?" "There is a seal, it doesn't look fake." Dewdrop said, "Miss, how do we reply to them?" Jiang Wan put down the embroidery in her hands and picked up the celadone teacup on the side. Gently stroking the rim of the teacup, she said, "Just say that I will personally pay a visit tomorrow morning." "Young lady." Dewdrop was startled. Jiang Wan said, "Go." The Zhao family, since they had made such a request, they had already made up their mind to meet the person. It was just as well. The day of Jiang Xian's return to the Fu was getting closer, and it would be too difficult for her to do it alone. The bargaining chip was laid out in the open, and it would depend on whether the Zhao family was willing to do this favor. When the Zhao family in the capital received this news, Zhao Guang's expression was solemn. A few days ago, Zhao Yi had detained a group of refugees at Chongxian village. According to Zhao Yi, those people were imperial guards who were skilled in martial arts, and were definitely not ordinary refugees. Moreover, in one night, all of them had committed suicide to escape punishment. Presumably, it was not a simple matter. As for who had done this, Zhao Guang could also guess a little. He had heard that the gates of the 8th Prince's Fu in the capital had been tightly shut, and that a large number of imperial guards had been executed. As for the young lady that Zhao Yi said he had met, Zhao Guang and his sons all believed that the person behind the scenes and the person who gave the kanji were definitely the same person. Based on Xian Li's actions, that person should be opposing Xian Li. To the Zhao family, this person had also helped the Zhao family several times. But now, they could not be too sure. The identity of the other party was still uncertain. What if it was Xian Li's doing? They had sent someone to the place where the kanji was given and requested to meet the person behind the scenes to test the waters, but the other party said that they would visit the next day. This kind of action was really unfathomable. Zhao Yuanjia said, "Father, since that person dared to visit, he must have made sufficient preparations. Should we also make some arrangements?" "There is no need," Zhao Yuanping's shrewd eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation. "I think that the other party is doing this to show that he has no ill intentions. At least, he will not start a conflict with us in the General's Fu." Who cares if he has a conflict or not, Zhao Yuanfeng said unconcernedly. What is there to be afraid of when we raise people in the general's fu? Whether he is a god or a ghost, won't he be well behaved if we beat him up first? Shut up, Zhao Guang was angered by Zhao Yuanfeng's words and glared at him. Can't you fucking grow some brains? Second brother is right, but to prevent that person from playing any tricks, we should first settle down your mother, Madam, Yulong, and the others. Second brother, Zhao Yuanfeng nudged the smartest Zhao Yuanping. Who do you think that person is? I don't know, Zhao Yuanping shook his head. We have seen all of father's colleagues, it cannot be one of them. In any case, we will know who it is tomorrow. That night, the Zhao family did not sleep well. Early the next morning, Jiang Wan left in a horse carriage. Lin Zixiang would send her an invitation every few days. Xia Yan wanted to maintain the appearance of a gentle, considerate, and loving mother, so she had no reason to stop her. Moreover, she had been busy with Jiang Su's affairs these past few days. Jiang Quan's attitude had softened, so Jiang Su did not have to go to the family temple. However, Jiang Su had not been able to sleep well for more than half a month. She kept saying that there was a ghost knocking on the door in the middle of the night. She had invited many doctors, but none of them had any effect. Xia Yan was extremely worried. Ever since the general's Fu had won the emperor's praise by giving out porridge, his colleagues in the officialdom had taken advantage of the situation. For a time, the entrance of the general's Fu had been crowded with visitors. Today, they had specially replied to all the invitations, specifically waiting for that one person. A green-gray horse carriage rumbled as it came to a stop in front of the general's Fu. From inside, a tall young girl dressed as a maidservant jumped down and said a few words to the manservant who was guarding the door. The manservant hurriedly left. After a moment, Zhao Yi strode out from the door, followed by a few sturdy bodyguards. When he saw the maidservant, he was slightly startled. Then, he stared at the horse carriage that had stopped at the door. The maidservant walked to the side of the horse carriage, stood on tiptoe, and said a few words. He had many questions, but when he saw Jiang Ruan's smiling profile, he swallowed them back down. These questions, when they reached the hall, would naturally be asked by Zhao Guang and his uncles. Zhao Yi led the four of them towards the main hall of the General Fu. Compared to the exquisite Jiang Fu, the General Fu appeared to be more imposing and magnificent. The guards in the Fu also looked very powerful. When Jiang Wan and the others walked past, they could not help but secretly cast their gazes over. Lian Xiao and Bai Ji were somewhat nervous, but Zhou Momo's body was slightly trembling. Jiang Wan could not help but laugh in her heart. Zhao Guang had indeed put in a lot of effort for her to come here. The guards here treated her as if they were facing a great enemy, so they must have some ability. When they reached the hall, Zhao Yi took the lead and walked in. Zhao Guang sat on the main seat, his entire person naturally exuding the aura of a general. It was an oppressive aura that came from the baptism of countless battles, and it caused people to feel an inexplicable chill. Zhao Yuanjia, Zhao Yuanping, and Zhao Yuanfeng sat on either side. Zhao Yuanjia was upright and steady, Zhao Yuanping was shrewd and farsighted, and Zhao Yuanfeng was unrestrained and unrestrained. The three sons of the Zhao family, on the other hand, did not seem to be ordinary people. Zhao Yi walked in with large strides and gestured to the people in the hall. That was their secret signal, meaning that there was no danger. Zhao Yi rushed outside and said, "Miss, please come in." Jiang Wan lifted her feet and walked inside. Zhao Guang and his three sons frowned and looked towards the entrance of the hall. They saw a young girl dressed in red walking in slowly. She was dressed in a maroon-red robe embroidered with the Four Happiness Rui pattern, a light red silk skirt embroidered with gold, and a colorful embroidered cicada wing muslin embroidered with the Four Happiness Rui pattern. Her long hair was coiled into an elegant and unique bun, and she wore an amber lapis bracelet on her wrist. A soft silk sash was tied around her waist, and an embroidered incense pouch hung from it. On her feet, she wore embroidered shoes scattered with butterflies. This young girl looked to be at most 11 or 12 years old, but she was astonishingly beautiful. Her facial features were bright and beautiful, but she did not appear frivolous. Instead, she had a calm beauty. However, this was not the most surprising thing. She smiled as she walked step by step towards them. Zhao Guang looked at her in shock, and his 3 sons also sat up abruptly and stared at her. As she walked closer and closer, Zhao Guang stood up abruptly. His eyes widened and his lips trembled uncontrollably as he called out in a low voice, "Mayor." Zhao Yuanjia and the other 2 had long been dumbfounded. Similar, too similar. An appearance too similar to Zhao Mei's. Even if Jiang Yuan only inherited 60 to 70% of Zhao Mei's looks, in the general's fu, where there were more men, Jiang Yuan looked too similar to Zhao Mei. Zhao Yuanjia and the other 2 had not seen Zhao Mei for many years, but in their memories, Zhao Mei was at this age. She loved to wear red, and she was as passionate as fire. She would laugh, run, and pester her brothers to ride with her. She had already passed away, and her face was forever sealed in their memories. Now that they saw Jiang Yuan, they felt as if they were reuniting with an old friend. And the one who suffered the greatest impact was Zhao Guang. His lips moved, but he could not say a word. Jiang Yuan's gaze swept over them, and she took in all their expressions. Regarding the Zhao family, in fact, in both her past and present life, she had never really come into contact with them. However, when she was young, Zhao Mei often told her about the general's fu, about her coarse and stubborn maternal grandfather, her uncles with different personalities, and about the happy times Zhao Mei had lived with these brothers and their parents. Even if it was just a description, Jiang Yuan could imagine how beautiful that scene was. At that time, Jiang Yuan would always ask Zhao Mei, "Why did grandfather and the others not come to see us?" Zhao Mei's brows were shrouded in a layer of melancholy. It's mother's fault. Mother made a mistake and is not worthy of their forgiveness. Originally, she did not understand what Zhao Mei meant, but now that she thought about it, it was just a woman's most sorrowful pain. In this world, was there anything more miserable than abandoning one's loved ones, only to find out that they were jackals and wolves? She was born in a civil family and was used to a life of scheming and scheming. She yearned for what Zhao Mei had said about being straightforward in the general's fu, and if she had any dissatisfaction, she would come out and fight it out. Unfortunately, until the end of her life in her past life, she did not have the opportunity to see the general's fu with her own eyes. She only received the news that their entire family had been executed. Now, in this life, she was stepping on the real land of the general's fu. She smiled and spoke softly, "General Zhao." The words, "General Zhao," pulled Zhao Guang back from his thoughts. The young girl in front of him looked too similar to Zhao Mei, but upon closer inspection, it was not entirely so. On the surface, Zhao Mei appeared to be passionate, but in reality, her temperament was gentle and soft, with a kind of naivety that was ignorant of worldly affairs. And this young girl was clearly also dressed in red, a fiery red color, but it gave off a cold feeling. In her eyes, there was a depth and vicissitudes of life that did not match her age. Although her smile was gentle, her temperament was too cold, too cold. She was not Zhao Mei. "Who are you?" Zhao Yuanfeng, who had the most irritable temperament, stood up. "Why do you look so similar to my sister?" Among the sons of the Zhao family, Zhao Yuanfeng and Zhao Mei had the best relationship. Zhao Yuanjia was more than 10 years older than Zhao Mei and had always been a caring elder brother. Zhao Yuanping was intelligent and farsighted. Although he usually doted on Zhao Mei, he did not know how to make her happy. Only Zhao Yuanfeng and his brother had a passionate and uninhibited temperament. Their age difference was not too big, and they climbed trees and rode horses together. Zhao Yuanfeng and Zhao Mei had such a good relationship. Now that he saw Jiang Wan, he was naturally very excited. Jiang Wan smiled and glanced at him, "Little maternal uncle?" As if struck by lightning, Zhao Yuan Feng retreated 2 steps and pointed at Jiang Wan, "You called me uncle?" Zhao Yuan Jia and Zhao Yuan Ping's expressions changed as they looked at Jiang Wan in disbelief. Zhao Guang's body also trembled violently. Jiang Wan ignored the astonished gazes of the crowd. "I am the one who gives out porridge under the Zhao family's banner. I am also the eldest daughter of the Jiang family's Ruan Yang." She smiled and said, "According to our relationship, I should greet you." She lightly bowed and said, "Wan Yang greets maternal grandfather, eldest maternal uncle, second maternal uncle, little maternal uncle." Zhao Yi, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally called out, "You are Gugu's daughter." He had always known that his father had a younger sister and he had an Gugu. However, this Gugu was a taboo in the Zhao family. When he was born, Gugu was no longer in the Fu, so he had never seen this Gugu. He had only heard bits and pieces from the mouths of the wet nurses and mama. Now, this little girl who had saved him once was actually Gugu's daughter. Jiang Wan looked at him, "You have worked hard, eldest Biao Gu." The father and son of the Zhao family looked at her, shocked and speechless. Lian Xiao gently pressed on Zhou Momo's hand. Zhou Momo understood and rushed forward to kneel down, crying, "Master, master, do you still remember this servant?" At that time, it was Yuan Furen who instructed this servant to follow Miss to the Jiang family. Zhou Momo. Zhao Guang was stunned for a moment. At that time, Zhao Mei had insisted on marrying into the Jiang family, even at the cost of severing all ties with the Zhao family. On that day, when they had packed their luggage and left the Fu, he and Furen had called for Zhouing to stay by Zhao Mei's side. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 years had passed. "How did you end up like this?" Zhao Guang frowned. At that time, Zhou Momo had been a complete person, but now, it seemed that she had become blind. Her body also did not look well, as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. "It was the vicious Jiang family who did this," Zhou Momo said. "The Jiang family harmed Miss, but it was little Miss who saved this old servant's life." Not only did the Jiang family harm little Miss, they also harmed little Miss's son and daughter. "Master, please save little Miss." As she finished speaking, she fiercely kowtowed to Zhao Guang. Jiang Wan ordered Baiji to help Zhou Momo up and looked at Zhao Guang. Zhao Guang's expression was one of shock. In an instant, his face turned ashen. He gritted his teeth and said, "Jiang Quan." "It is my biological father," Jiang Ruan said indifferently. "General, please help Ruan Yang." Chapter 80. The father and son of the Zhao family were silent. The 3 generations of the Zhao family were all generals. Madame Su had given birth to 3 sons and 1 daughter. Zhao Mei was the 3rd. Towards this only daughter, the entire Zhao family could not wait to dote on her. Although Zhao Guang was a general, and his actions were rough, he was extremely patient with Zhao Mei. From a babbling infant to a delicate little girl to a slender and elegant young lady, Zhao Guang had raised them all in the palm of his hand. Zhao Mei liked to ride horses, so he sent people to spend a lot of money to find a batch of pure colts. Zhao Mei wanted to learn archery, so he taught her step by step. Zhao Yuanjia's 3 sons were usually harshly scolded by Zhao Guang. Only Zhao Mei never said a word harshly. The Zhao family only had this 1 daughter, and Zhao Guang already doted on her so much. Su Shi and old Madame Zhao doted on her even more. Zhao Yuanjia and a few of his brothers also protected Zhao Mei, and no one dared to bully Zhao Mei in the circle of nobles in the capital. Zhao Mei was blessed by the heavens, so she naturally grew up with an innocent and unaffected temperament. She was warm and generous, but she just had to meet someone like Jiang Quan. At that time, Jiang Quan was a new official in the court. He was young and handsome, and came from a scholarly family. He had a refined and scholarly air, and to Zhao Mei, who was used to seeing careless martial artists, he had a fatal attraction. She was quite bold, and tried to get close to him, but Zhao Guang saw through her. Zhao Guang did not think well of Jiang Quan. Although he was a general, he was not a man with brute force and no brains. Having been immersed in the bureaucracy for many years, he could see the ambition in this new official's eyes. Ambition aside, ever since Xiao Xiao stopped the Yellow Emperor from appointing a crown prince, the court fought openly and secretly, and many court officials secretly took sides. At that time, the Zhao family belonged to the neutral faction, and insisted on not getting involved in the muddy water of the struggle for the throne. At that time, Jiang Quan's actions hinted that he wanted to rely on the eighth prince. Even if there came a day when they had no choice but to take sides, the Zhao family would never choose the eighth prince. Xianli was unfathomable, and dealing with him was tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin. Zhao Guang did not like Jiang Quan. Although Madame Su's heart ached for her daughter, her opinion on this matter was exactly the same as Zhao Guang's. This was because, as someone's wife, she could see that Jiang Quan's gaze towards Zhao Mei did not contain the slightest trace of affection between a man and a woman. On the contrary, when he was facing the most talented woman in the capital, Xia Yan, his eyes were filled with affection. Madame Su was merely a married woman. If Jiang Quan truly liked Zhao Mei, then it would have been fine. However, he clearly did not like Zhao Mei, yet he still proposed to marry her. This showed that he had other considerations in his heart. Unfortunately, at that time, Zhao Mei wholeheartedly wanted to marry Jiang Quan and would not listen to anything. A rebellious girl, a stubborn father. Zhao Guang and Zhao Mei quarreled for the first time, locking Zhao Mei in her room. Who would have thought that Zhao Mei would jump out of the window and escape, meeting up with Jiang Quan? Zhao Guang was furious and threatened to sever all ties with Zhao Mei. Although Zhao Mei felt sad in her heart, she also thought that Zhao Guang was, after all, his own flesh and blood. Zhao Guang was in a fit of anger, so naturally he would say such things. After she and Jiang Quan were married, Zhao Guang's anger would subside, and he would pay a visit to apologize properly. After that, they would still be family. The Jiang family also thought so. After all, the Zhao family was a meritorious family with a distinguished status. The old Jiang madam did not say anything and arranged the marriage in private. However, on the day of their return, the Zhao family did not acknowledge Zhao Mei. They were determined to draw a clear line between themselves and Zhao Mei. Zhao Mei was naturally heartbroken. As time passed, seeing that the Zhao family showed no signs of reconciling with Zhao Mei, the Jiang family's attitude towards Zhao Mei gradually became cold. Not long after, Jiang Quan accepted Xia Yan and became even colder towards Zhao Mei. Her husband was so cold, and the Jiang family was so indifferent to human relations. Zhao Mei thought about many things on her own. She felt that she did not have the face to meet her parents and brothers, and did not want to involve the Zhao family in the muddy waters of the Jiang family. Later, when the Zhao family heard about Xia Yan's matter and came to visit, they used an extremely harsh tone to send the people who came. Gradually, the Zhao clan and the Jiang clan became like strangers to each other. The atmosphere in the hall became very strange. Zhao Guang looked at Jiang Wan with a complicated expression. All these years, it was not that he had not sent people to the Jiangfu. When Zhao Mei was there, her attitude was always very harsh, as if she was facing an enemy. As time went by, Zhao Guang's heart became cold, and he just pretended that he did not have this daughter. He even turned a blind eye to the entire Jiang family, and no news of the Jiang family could reach the General Fu. Now, this granddaughter had suddenly come. Not only that, but the wet nurse who had previously served Zhao Mei had also brought such shocking news. The Zhao family was the most protective, and upon hearing this, they would certainly be furious. Zhao Yuanping, who had been silent all this time, said, "So, you are my niece." Why did you give out porridge before? Jiang Wan raised her head to look at him. This man, who was rumored to be the smartest man in the Zhao family, was born with the elegance of a scholarly official. She smiled faintly. Eighth prince wants to use this opportunity to disperse the Zhao family's wealth and reduce their influence. Since second maternal uncle calls me his niece, it is only a slight effort. Where did you get the money? Zhao Yuanping stared at her, not letting go of any trace of expression on her face. Jiang Ruan's expression did not change. Nowadays, the price of grain has increased more than 10 times, but I bought it more than a month ago. Zhao Yuanping ridiculed her. Could it be that you can predict the future? It was just a coincidence. Jiang Wan nodded. A glint flashed across Zhao Yuanping's eyes. He was not like Zhao Guang, who was muddled by familial affection, nor was he like Zhao Yuanjia, nor was he like Zhao Yuanfeng, who only cared about being surprised. As the calmest person in the Zhao family, after a brief moment of shock, he had been observing Jiang Wan. Although Jiang Wan looked very much like his deceased third sister, Jiang Wan and Zhao Mei were completely different people. For example, right now, there was not a single flaw in her expression. From beginning to end, she had watched the Zhao family's agitation without a trace of emotion. She was even calmer and more self-controlled than any enemy he had ever met. But, she was only a niece. Ridiculous. How do you know 8th Prince's plan? Zhao Guang asked sternly. Jiang Ruan's words shocked them. However, a young girl in the boudoir should not know such matters of the imperial court. She had said it so bluntly, which made it even more strange. It made people suspect that this was just one of Jiang Quan's schemes. Wait, the one who was the most impatient was Zhao Yuanfeng. His mind was completely focused on the matter of his niece, so he said, "What are you talking about? You did not come today to acknowledge your ancestors and return to your family?" Jiang Wan smiled as she looked at him. This was the youngest uncle that Zhao Mei had said was the closest to her. Now, after so many years, his temperament had not changed at all. She said, "Acknowledging my ancestors and return to my family depends on General and Madam's wishes. Wan Yang's identity is not important. Today, I have come to ask for a deal." "What deal?" Zhao Guang's face turned cold. If it was related to Jiang Quan, then Jiang Ruan's purpose for coming today was suspicious. Jiang Wan smiled slightly. "I have helped the Zhao family gather most of their assets and saved the life of the city garrison officer. The city garrison officer can be considered the lifeblood of the Zhao family. Wan Yang believes that this kind of favor is enough. As for the deal, I hope that General can save my eldest brother's life. If we are to count it by blood, half of my eldest brother's blood belongs to the Zhao family." "Your eldest brother?" Zhao Guang frowned. "What about your eldest brother? Also, what do you mean by you saved Yi's life?" Before Jiang Wan could open her mouth, Zhao Yi said, "Grandfather, the young lady we met on the way to Chong Xian Manor that day is this young lady." Zhao Yuanjia was stunned. "So that's how it is." Jiang Wan said, "That's how it is. As for my eldest brother, he is currently safe and sound. However, the situation is critical. Xia Yan and Jiang Quan want to kill him." She did not even call him father and directly called Jiang Quan by his name. It was clear how much she loathed Jiang Quan. "Niece, you have to make this clear. What does the Jiang family want?" Zhao Yuanping said with a smile that was not a smile. "My mother passed away 5 years ago. I was sent to the manor and my eldest brother joined the army. This is also the first time I have returned to the capital at the end of the year. I had the fortune of meeting the son of the general of the army and asked him to help me find news about my eldest brother. My eldest brother has been promoted to deputy general and will return to the capital in a few days. My maidservant heard of Jiang Quan and Xia Yan's plan and was prepared to murder him." "Niece, did you hear wrongly?" Zhao Yuanjia was shocked. in any case, he is Jiang Quan's own flesh and blood. How could he be so vicious? Jiang Wan glanced at him indifferently. Jiang Quan doted on Xia Yan's son and daughter. Without my eldest brother, Xia Yan's son, Jiang Chao, could inherit the entire Jiang family. If eldest brother returns, Jiang Chao's position will be in imminent danger. Moreover, now that eldest brother has become deputy general, he is a great threat to Jiang Chao, who is still a commoner. Us siblings have long become a thorn in Xia Yan's side. As for the familial love you speak of. Jiang Wan smiled. Eldest maternal uncle may have lived comfortably for too long and does not know how difficult it is for us stepmothers to make a living. If Jiang Quan was concerned about familial love, the matter of Xia Yan bribing a Taoist priest to slander me as a heavenly cursed lone star, placing me in the manor and repeatedly trying to harm me would not have happened. If it were not for my good fortune, I'm afraid that there would have been a coffin next to my mother's grave. What heavenly cursed lone star? Zhao Guang asked coldly. General does not like the affairs of the Jiang Fu, so naturally, you do not know. I think that the matter of Su Kong Dao Zhang, which has caused an uproar in the capital a few days ago, must have been heard by the city garrison Darren. Zhao Yi looked at Jiang Wan in astonishment. He walked around all day, and when he drank, he would gather with his colleagues. He had also heard about the matter of Su Kong Dao Zhang of the Jiang family. At that time, he had wrung his hands and sighed on behalf of the innocent eldest Jiang Miss, but he did not know that eldest Jiang Miss was his paternal aunt's daughter, his biological cousin. This is too much. Zhao Guang slammed his fist on the table, his heart bleeding. He was wrong. As Jiang Wan had said, Mei was not doing well at all. Why did she not seek help from her family? Why did she use such harsh words to drive out the people he had sent? She was afraid of implicating the Zhao family. He was wrong. When Zhao Mei returned to her family, he should have acknowledged her. So what if the Jiang family wanted to borrow the Zhao family's power? At least Jiang Quan would not dare to bully Mei, like he was doing now, and force her children. My mother was killed by the Jiang family. Although I have yet to find evidence, I will find it one day. Jiang Wan said, my mother never hated the Zhao family. When I was very young, she often talked to me about the Zhao family. Jiang Wan looked at Zhao Guang. I have a blood feud with the Jiang family that needs to be avenged, but now, I only hope that General can make this deal with me and save my eldest brother. She was not sure how deep the Zhao family's feelings for Zhao Mei were. She had said so much, but it was only to make Zhao Guang feel guilty. This deal seemed very worthwhile, but the Zhao family had always been stubborn. If Zhao Guang felt remorseful, he would agree to her help. She swept a glance around the hall. The Zhao father and son's eyes were filled with resentment. Obviously, she had aroused their anger towards Jiang Quan. Except for one. Jiang Wan met Zhao Yuanfeng's probing gaze and smiled faintly. Yes, that was it. No matter how much the Zhao family loved Zhao Mei, she had been dead for many years. Someone who had died many years ago, and who had disobeyed her parents and severed ties with them, would their feelings for her fade? Jiang Wan did not know. She could only rely on the words that Zhao Mei had once said about the Zhao family to win over their hearts bit by bit. Apart from the slightly calm Zhao Yuanping, the Zhao father and son's eyes were red. They were emotional people, and Jiang Wan was talking about the Zhao family's most beloved youngest daughter. Naturally, they were indignant. Looking at Jiang Ruan's words again, although she had played it down, how could the matter of being framed by her stepmother in the rural residence be easy? Jiang Quan and his wife dared to harm Zhao Mei and even dared to kill Jiang Xing. How many dangers had Jiang Wan experienced to live until now? Zhao Guang was furious. Jiang Wan looked at him quietly. General, do you accept this deal or not? What if I don't? Zhao Guang asked. I will stop giving out porridge. Since General has received His Majesty's praise and does not wish to compensate me, I cannot take advantage of you for nothing. As for Lord Garrison's life, saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda, but Lord Garrison is not so lucky every day. Zhao Guang looked at him for a while and suddenly laughed. Good. At first, he felt that this little girl had a cold aura all over her. She was young and unpredictable, so he was very suspicious. Now that he knew about Zhao Mei, his heart was filled with regret and hatred. His suspicions of Jiang Wan disappeared, and he only treated her as his own granddaughter. How could he look at her? She was proud of her advance and retreat, generous in her conduct, and her intelligence was also top-notch. The daughter of the Zhao family should have this kind of bearing. What general? Zhao Guang said coldly. Call me grandfather. Jiang Wan raised her eyebrows and readily accepted his advice. Grandfather. Zhao Yuanfeng was the first to jump up and walk to Jiang Ruan's side. You really are my niece. After he finished speaking, he looked her up and down and shook his head. Ah, your looks are more outstanding than Mei Er, but your personality is not as cute as Mei Er. Zhao Mei was gentle, but she was not a gentle person. Zhao Yuanjia and Zhao Yi were naturally happy. Only Zhao Yuanping remained calm and collected as he sat on the spot and looked at Jiang Wan again. As they spoke, a few voices came from the back of the hall. Yulong, don't run. Even father can't guess who the noble person is today. Naturally, I have to go see. Mother, grandmother, don't follow me. Second brother, wait for me, I will go too. Both of you, stop right there. Immediately after, the curtain at the side was lifted and 2 youths walked out. They both looked to be 14 or 15 years old. The slightly taller one was handsome and refined, somewhat similar to Zhao Yuanping. The shorter one was in high spirits. When the two saw a beautiful young girl standing in the hall, they were both stunned. Yulong, flying boat. 2 beautiful matrons walked out of the hall and called out gently. When they saw Jiang Wan, they were also slightly stunned. The last one to walk out was the gentle and virtuous Susher. She smiled and said, these 2 rascals can't be stopped. Zhao Yi pulled Jiang Wan to Susher's side. Grandmother, look who this is. Susher was over 40 years old, but her eyes were still surprisingly good. When she saw Jiang Wan from afar, her body trembled. When Zhao Yi pulled Jiang Wan over to see her more clearly, tears suddenly fell like rain. My Mei Er. She hugged Jiang Wan. Jiang Wan gently let her hug her. After Zhao Mei passed away, no one had hugged her so gently. Susher's embrace also made her feel a little absent-minded. Zhao Yulong walked in front of Zhao Yuanping and said, Father, who is she? Zhao Yuanping forced a smile. She is your aunt's daughter, your cousin. Susher, who was hugging Jiang Wan, trembled when she heard this. She slowly released Jiang Wan and looked at her with tearful eyes. Just now, the pleasant surprise gradually faded. She thought that the heavens had given her a chance to meet her daughter in the netherworld. Then, another wave of joy filled her heart. She said, You are Wan Er. When Zhao Mei had just given birth to Jiang Wan, she had also asked around. Jiang Wan nodded. Susher looked at her and for a moment, did not know what to say. She only caressed her hand. Really good, you are as beautiful as your mother. You are already a young lady. Zhao Feizhou stood beside his mother and looked at Jiang Wan curiously. Susher said, After so many years, I thought that I would never have the chance to see you again. Wan, does your father know that you have come out like this? Just as the Zhao family did not like the Jiang Fu also did not like the General Fu. Susher was afraid that Jiang Wan would suddenly come over and be punished by Jiang Quan. Jiang Wan looked at this gentle woman. Maternal grandmother. Unexpectedly, there was no ill feeling at all. She smiled and said, "I will handle it myself." Seeing that her temperament was steady and her actions were appropriate like an adult, Sushar was both excited and gratified. "Your mother has taught you very well, very well." Hearing this, Zhao Guang and his son's expressions dimmed. "Ruan, why have you suddenly come over? Have you forgiven maternal grandmother for her mistakes? In the past, it was all maternal grandmother's fault. I should not have ignored your mother and you. I don't know if you have been wronged." Sushar seemed to be protected in the palm of the Zhao family's hands, so she did not know the dangers outside. Jiang Wan pondered for a moment and smiled. Why does maternal grandmother say this? It is because Ruan Yang has not fulfilled her filial duties and has not come to visit maternal grandmother in so many years. I have been living very well. The Jiang Fu does not lack food and clothing, and no one has wronged me. Wronged? She would naturally take her revenge slowly. Seeing that Jiang Wan had concealed the matters of the Jiang Fu, Zhao Guang and his son's hearts were slightly moved. Sushar had been depressed for so many years after Zhao Mei's death. If she knew that Jiang Wan and her sister had suffered, her heart would certainly be in extreme pain. However, Jiang Wan did not mention it. In the end, she had taken care of Sushar's feelings. She smiled slightly. "This time, I have specially come to see maternal grandfather's family. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.